Welcome, brave souls, to the darkest corners of storytelling. This is Memento Mori Inc., where shadows whisper and nightmares are lovingly wrapped in the cold embrace of a body bag. Here, our guests are not just interviewed, they're abducted, buried beneath the weight of their words until they can no longer hide from the truth. Tonight, we unzip the body bags, dig beneath the skin, and expose the raw, bloody core of what makes their tales of horror so powerful. No place to run, no place to hide. We're going beyond the surface and getting straight to the meat of the story. So sit tight, turn down the lights, and remember, this is your one way ticket to the dark, the twisted, and the unrelenting. Welcome to Memori Inc. Once you're in, there's no escaping. Hello, everyone. This is episode 2 of the Memento Mori Inc. podcast. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring everybody up from the dark corners of that basement. We have our undead assistant, Pixie Bruner. She's extra dead today, if you see that, so she's a little stiff.
White.
We have Donnell Whiting, co-host and co-shenanigans.
Aloha. Konnichiwa.
And we have Michelle from Coffee Fueled Stories joining us today. So I want to go over a couple of things before we dive right in, just a few announcements. You're going to hear some of these announcements here for the very first time. We have been dying to release some of this news, but for the January issue, we will be interviewing Michael Uslan. We have interviewed Thomas Jane, and then the Maddest Hatter Chance Hart artist, who is the cover model as well. We have Wolfpack Media there. We have Max Ian Gold, who is a poet extraordinaire. He will be in there as well as our freelancers who are bringing it with all kinds of different things for you guys this time. It's a packed, jacked issue coming in January. And for those of you who have not already heard our summer issue, which will be out around May-ish, will be our summer slasher issue. We are looking for females for this one. So if you're a female cosplayer, we're not looking for the overly sexualized cosplayer. We'll have a place for those. But for this issue, we're looking for pee my pants, scare the hell out of you, strong female roles. So we're looking for the femme fatale category. We are looking for the final girl category, and then of course our slasher category. So if you know anybody who fits that bill, please send them our way. We'd love to interview them and feature them in the magazine. And then for the very special announcement we've been waiting to tell you, we will have our very first Memento Mori Inc. Anthology. And this will be published by Crystal Lake in 2026. So we're looking at fall 2026. Some of it will be by invitation only, and then we'll do an open call. So we are looking to have you guys. Sorry about that. We are looking to have you guys. Godzilla is coming. Sorry. Give us your best stories for the Memento Mori Inc. And the premise of this one is that there is an artifact linking your character to death and your demise. And we'll go over that a little bit more later on in the show, but just know that that's our big announcement. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and talk to Michelle a little bit, who runs the sister company with us, Coffee Fueled Stories. Thank you so much for joining us. We love having you here. Tell us a little bit about you and about your podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much. Coffee Fueled Stories kind of started as a way for me to heal from becoming a widow kind of early in my life. I decided that, and this is where Memento Mori comes in. My life had fallen apart and I was picking back up the pieces, and I was trying to figure out who the hell I was, what I was doing, where I was going. And I always wanted to be a radio DJ, and my mom said, no, you have to get a real job. And so I did. And fast forward 30 years later after working And then, like I said, having my life fall apart, I decided it's time it's time to play in my own sandbox. I've been playing in everybody else's sandbox. It's time to play in my sandbox. And my sandbox was headphones, microphone, and talking with people that inspired me and moved me. And I wanted to share their stories. So it was a way for me to heal, put together all of my background, my literature background. I love reading. I've been into reading since I was a child. I have tattoos of books on me. So it was fitting that Coffee Field Stories came to life. So the show is mostly horror writers, but it's not just strictly horror writers. And you don't have to drink coffee to be on the show, but it's a way to open the conversation because I love to hang out, drink coffee, and talk about books and the writing process. So that is what the show in is about essentially, but it's not just that. We nerd out, we hang out and talk about the characters, what they eat, what they drink, how much coffee was consumed while writing the story. So that's the show in a nutshell, if you will.
Awesome. And I love that it aligns with ours so well. There is a gap, I think. A lot of people get on a talk show or they get on a podcast and they treat it like a talk show sometimes, and that's fine for if that's what it's about. But I think there's been a gap in learning the process, the real behind the scenes, what it takes to create a character and create a story that we can immerse ourselves in. So tell us a little bit about like when you first started, what were some of the obstacles that you had to encounter to kind of find your groove?
So when I first started doing this, I had no idea what I was doing. It was literally I plugged the things in and I just started. And it was fail until you succeed process, which is awesome because if you don't fail, then you haven't learned. And I learned a lot. I rebranded, I changed the name, I changed the focus, I niched down. It took years to do that before I finally got into this groove. And so I'm just now starting to head into my 5th year. So it took me 3 years before I really knew what I was doing, what I wanted to do, and who I was directing the show towards. So a lot of learning, a lot of failing, but at the end, it's I believe it's been successful. The show is entertaining and informative, which makes me happy because if you're not having fun while you're learning, then what's the point?
Hmm. Definitely. And I love that you and I are kind of very similar, all of us, but you and I are very similar in the fact that we're like, what's our purpose? What,
Yes.
what are we doing here?
Why
Make the
am I
most
here?
of your
Yes.
time to talk and have fun, but there's got to be a purpose to what we're doing.
Of course.
So, what are the top 3 things that you would say are the most important for every episode?
So, definitely some sort of nugget from the guest, the writer, the author that hopefully inspires a listener, whether they be an author, a budding author, or a reader. So, I like to say it's a podcast for writers to help them write, and a podcast for readers to help them find their favorite next book.
Mm,
So hopefully there's something that comes out of the show for both the writer or future writers and future readers. And then, of course, I'm going to be a little bit selfish and I'm going to say myself as well. So hopefully
for sure.
I'm able to make that, special connection and share something that just, sparks that inspiration in me from that guest.
Hmm. For sure. Donnell, did you have a question?
Um, yeah. Okay. So you said coffee's not required, but it is. Coffee is life. The bean
It
water.
is. It is.
Now,
But I'm sorry, please.
but again, do you drink your bean water highly caffeinated and do you drink it plain, black, like a psycho? Or do you like to
I am
do you like
I
to have
am
it
not a
embellished?
psycho. I'm not a psycho. I don't drink it straight black. I have when I travel, because I have dairy issues. I'm afraid to have dairy overseas, so
Mm,
I do drink it with sugar. overseas, so it will be black in that regard, but I'll add just a little bit of sugar to it. But right now there's a little bit of cream and sugar in this cup. I decided to have, since it's Friday, all my bonus content is done. All of my treats are up for everyone. I'm celebrating by having myself a cup of coffee right now.
Nice. Nice.
So what is your favorite? If you were to put a creamer in there, what's your favorite one?
I know it sounds cliche, but vanilla. I'm kind of a vanilla type of girl.
You're
I'm
so vanilla.
I'm wholesome with a little bit of edge. So, and some people might say, well, that's a little, boring, or it's a little fancy.
Vanilla can be a
it's
very
classic.
sophisticated flavor.
Exactly.
Okay, so on the tail end of that, because my coffee creamer is how I get my chocolate every day. And right now it's Chobani's peppermint mocha. It's out for the season.
Yes.
I am in freaking heaven. Anyway, chocolate? Yes, no?
Yes.
Chocolate.
Yeah,
All right. See, we can nerd out for hours.
I could definitely nerd out on chocolate because I don't, you know what? Don't get me started. So
Chocolate chip coffee.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yep.
There's so many things I can nerd out on. And my husband will tell me, I'm not right. There's something wrong with me. And I'm like, yes, but you married me.
I'll disagree in the best possible way. If you can have a conversation about,
It's another source of wonderful caffeine.
If you can't have I could have a 5-hour conversation on a golf ball. And this
Right.
was actually given to me by a musician friend. So that's his band on there. But we could have a 5-hour conversation about a golf ball. And I think that's actually a sign of someone who is creative. Because not like we could talk about so many different things in regard to that golf ball. And I don't know, I think it just means that your mind is open. And like I said, and you just let the creativity flow. So if you can have a conversation about anything, that stimulates me, as nerdy as it sounds.
Yep.
Yeah, I love having conversations with people that have a little bit, like, the least thing that you expect somebody to know, and then they rattle off something, and I'm like, oh, clutch the pearls. I was like, oh my.
Earlier, I used the word purloined.
Oh, nice.
I've used it before. And he's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, so then all of a sudden, I'm thinking of my granddaughter, Mabel, who wants to be a cat dentist. So I said, purloined. It's a cat pig. Purloin. See, ain't right. There's something wrong in there.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Those dad jokes can stay over there.
that was a grandma joke. It's a grandma joke.
I love puns. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know
Puns
why
are
it popped
fun.
in my head. It just did. It's like, I'll take it.
So outside of your podcast, you're also a writer. And we kind of touched on this, you and I, but I want you to share it with the rest of the group here. What are you writing about?
Sure. So right now I just have my first book it's a memoir. It's a mini memoir, or micro memoir, as my publisher likes to say. And we like to say it is a photo driven micro memoir. And what that is I, again, trying to first put myself out there and try to heal from going through what I was going through. My life was really scary, really ugly at the time, when my wife was alive. She was going through cancer treatment. Our life was really messy, and it was all over the place, and we never knew what to expect. And it was so, like, messy is just the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
And sometimes writing was a way to kind of control the chaos and the fear. And so I started blogging, and from those blogs, I just started, healing a little bit more. And then, of course, when everything fell apart, then I really went to writing. It was extremely cathartic. And so from that experience from those blogs, I decided to turn it into a book. So I
Mhm.
self-published first, and then I decided I needed some more help because it's a daunting process. And I learned a lot, and it was very punk rock the way that I just kind of put everything out there. I just kind of was, you know what, this is okay, sure, why not? And so I put it out there. And then I decided to see if, well, maybe somebody wants to pick it up and kind of help me along. And so she's been amazing. I love working with her, and she's got great ideas. And as a matter of fact, hopefully in the next couple weeks, I get to see the new cover. So I'm
Oh,
really excited about that.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what she's done. And like I said, her ideas are just amazing. And so it'll be a republishing coming out in July of next year.
Mm. Are you allowed to say what publisher?
I don't see why not.
Okay.
Well, actually, we haven't made let's see, we've made an announcement, but we haven't. So, how about this? I'll say, is it too much to ask if
Wait
you,
until the contract's signed.
the
Yeah.
contract is signed. The contract is
Okay.
signed, but we haven't made the announcement where it says like such and such publisher is, that we haven't done that announcement yet, but I
Interesting.
have signed the contract. So that I
Okay.
do know. But
Yeah.
actually, you know what?
Well,
Let's
okay.
just
No, no,
wait till we, like,
that's totally fine. That's totally fine. We can announce later on for you because
Yeah.
this will be up before the end of the month. So I don't want to put it up there and then you're like, oh wait.
Yeah, yes.
But it's exciting, and it maybe she wants to do that kind of release, like, oh, it's a reveal kind of thing, and that's great for the book itself, and to start making those announcements and tracking where that interest is coming in, what social medias are best for it. So we'll go ahead and honor that and let her announce it when she's ready, because it's going to be a big deal for you too.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. And like I said,
Mhm.
we just talked last weekend, so that's when I got to find out when the cover is.
Mhm.
She's prepping me for the cover, so that's coming here like really. So next week or the week after, I'll get to see the
Awesome.
cover, the new cover.
So you self-published first, you said, right? And now
Yes.
you have a publisher. Can you tell me the major differences, good and bad, between self-publishing and publishing for you as a first-time writer?
So yeah, I suck at marketing. I I suck at it. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, first, okay, so the reason I suck at it is because I don't know what I'm doing. If I knew what I was doing, I probably wouldn't suck at it. But
Mhm.
I don't. It's one of those things that you have to learn, kind of like with podcasting. I had to learn how to do this thing here and find the right audience, find the right name, things of that nature. So the same kind of thing happened with self-publishing. Um, I knew I had a product, and I felt passionate about my product, my book,
Mhm.
my blogs, my message, and I felt that I knew I needed to put it out there. And just because I was afraid to query and try to find someone, let's just say I had to do 100 queries and get 100 rejections. I was like, you know what? I really feel passionate about my project. I really want to put it out there. So I did.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's kind of punk rock about it. Because I didn't look at the marketing. I didn't look at what text I should use on the cover and what color and things. I was like, this is the photo I like. This is the font I like. This is what I want on the back. Here.
Yeah.
So I slapdash. I did that. I put it out there, and I felt confident with that.
Mhm.
Marketing was the hardest part. Like, who do I find? How do I get people to want this product?
Sure.
So that's the challenge. That was the biggest challenge for me.
Mhm. And so did you have like a mentor throughout this, or do you have one now?
So the podcast kind of helped a little bit because I talked with a lot of authors who were self-published. And so I would reach out to them and, ask them questions. I did have some people offer advice. Hey, when I did it on, let's just pick Amazon. Hey, when I did it on Amazon, this is what I clicked. This is, how you do. Because I was like, I don't know what this is. What do you do? How do you pick the cover? So I did
Mhm.
reach out to a few people. So I didn't have one mentor per se. But I did reach out to other people who were guests on the show to kind of
Mhm.
guide me a little bit. I think that was I don't know. I can't remember if there were two questions or one. So
Oh,
sorry.
no, that was great. And then finally, because I know that Donnell's going to be itching to know this, talk about your experience with the editor.
So the editor for the republishing or the editor for my
Both.
first?
Both.
Go for it. Both.
Both?
Comparison. Yeah.
So, like I said, I had no idea what I was doing. And so I have a friend from grad school, my very dear, dear, dear friend, who is a word nerd, and I love her dearly. And I literally was like, hey, how would you feel editing my book?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, I can't afford to hire someone right now.
Mm-hmm.
She knows my whole story. She was there for everything. So I didn't want someone who, I wanted someone who knew my story, just because I was scared, terrified to put.
Sure. Yeah.
I was like, I don't want some rando stranger out there
Yeah.
reading my stuff. I want someone who actually knows my story, cares about what I'm saying, who is going to be gentle and guide me.
Yeah.
Because again, this was my first time doing it.
Right.
And so, and she did, and we did it like the most. We did it in what was it, Dropbox, and then it was PDF. Like it was the most cumbersome process ever. It was a freaking nightmare. I felt so bad for her. So we would do like the little notes on the PDF and then Dropbox it back and forth. And we had like, it was 77 pages. So we had 77 notes like on each page.
You did it through comments?
Yes.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh.
It was so old school. It was so analog. But we did it. And so when I finally put it all together, and the PDF that had all of her little edits in there, and some things couldn't be changed because they were screenshots from my old website, which doesn't exist anymore. And I didn't have Adobe. I wasn't able to like change text. So I'm like, that comma or that misspelling is stuck. So I see it in your note.
That's kind of the charm, I think.
Yeah, and I even put a little disclaimer on the very first, printing of it. I was like, look, this is raw. This is pure. I had no editor when I was doing my little blogs. It was just me talking to the internet. I only had 3 people reading my blogs at the time, which was fine. And so, like I said, but now with a publisher, she has a proper editor. They can fix everything because they have all of the magic tools that I had free things of everything or no way to change anything. So I'm like I said, it's very punk rock. And now I'm like, now we're polished.
Yeah.
Now it's a symphony.
That's right.
Yes.
All right.
Donnell, did you have a question about that?
Just that. How many
I have a question.
are in there? The
My
word
question is,
Hold on, Pixie, 1 second. You're a little lag behind. 1 second.
I'm just got it. I mean, was there a word that she'd be like, you got to take this out. It's too much. Unnecessary word.
No, because if anything, I'm extremely verbose when I'm talking, but my writing, I can tell you, if you ask me to say something in a conversation, it'll be 10 sentences. But if I write it, I'll give you 3 words. So I am the complete, and that's because I'm a technical writer by trade. That's what I do. I write SOPs, standard operating procedures. And so for me, being succinct and efficient in my documentation, my professors hated it in grad school. They're like, can you give us some more? I'm like, why? There's no reason. 10 words, gotcha.
Yeah.
But when I talk, I'm sorry.
You are a dream.
Keep it simple, stupid.
10 hours. But I'll write 10 words.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
All right, Pixie, what was your question?
My question is, are you having, though, the original typos corrected because that preserves the authenticity?
We haven't talked about that. That's a really good question. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but and I don't know. I'm not sure. We
Yeah.
haven't gotten to the editing part, like the complete editing part. But
Yeah.
that is a very valid question. You're absolutely,
Mm.
thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah.
It
I think,
preserves the urgency and the authenticity of your voice.
mhm.
And because it reflects such a hard time in your life,
Yeah,
maybe some of them should stay. It's
sure.
just my input, my opinion. It means jack crap, so don't worry
No,
about it.
I think it actually means a lot, and I think it's part of the charm. It's part of the aesthetic of who you were and what you were going through.
Yes.
Like she said, your voice, like your
Mhm.
voice and who you were then is not the same person and who you are now. So having that reflection of those moments where people can kind of see where your mind was maybe just a little frazzled or, not on track. I mean, that lends to what you're going through, right?
You guys are gonna freaking love this because you're never gonna believe what we're doing.
What?
Honest to
Yes!
God. So I actually did address this. I asked her, I said, this book, kind of came up. It's 7 years, like some of this content is, 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, up to 10 years old. Some of these, my very first blogs. One of them's from like 2013, 2016, 2017.
Mhm.
So, some of these passages are pretty old. I said, and I said, so this is how I felt back then, and
Mhm.
but this is how I am now, and this is who I am now, and I've learned and I've grown and I've hopefully progressed, obviously healed. So then she said, how about we do some reflections? And I just went, oh, like I said,
Yeah.
she made me cry because she gets me. I
Yeah.
freaking love her. Like I can't,
Mhm.
like I'm so happy to be in her hands. And
Yeah.
so I actually am starting the reflection process next month on several. We're not doing the whole book. We're
Yeah.
not doing like, here's what happened 7 years ago, and now
Yeah.
here's how we're picking some, and we're doing reflections to show the changes and the growth and the progress
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
then to now.
And that's really cool. Go ahead, Danielle.
So actually, then what Pixie said about keeping some of those typos or those misspellings or errors, if you were to then you reflect, it does show that growth a lot better than just saying I've
Mhm.
grown, because
Yeah.
Yes.
your writing will change, it will evolve.
Yes.
And working with a great editor also helps you see certain things. After a while, you get used to what that person's looking for and you start to see it. So I'm
Mhm.
Yes.
going to out Lisa. For a long time, she would use the word that, this little extraneous word that
Mhm.
is not necessary in every stinking sentence.
Mhm.
So I would sit there and I'd read Mark and I'm crossing my, I'm like, stop.
Mhm.
Just and very are two others. But that I never knew was an issue until I had one professor in college point it out. And ever since then, that's been my thing. Get rid of it.
Mhm.
So you can show that progression of growth. And another thing is you working with editors and mentors helps you with your writing as well, because, okay, another outing. Lisa's a comma whore. She
Still
loves
am.
the,
Still am. If my brain stops, there's a comma.
she still is,
Uh-oh.
but she's way better than she used to be.
Mhm.
She will
So
stop and think it through.
that's stylistic choices though.
Mhm.
Yes, it is.
So, um, okay, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole because can people are very possessive of commas, and and that's okay. Um, I started out as a journalism major
Mhm.
before I switched to English. So me and commas, I don't want them.
Mhm.
Only because, so like the Oxford comma isn't called the Oxford comma anymore. It's the serial
Mhm.
comma.
Mhm.
Oxford doesn't use their own comma that it was named after it anymore. Because again, and I know people have seen the memes about eggs, orange juice, and bacon. And if you don't put the comma in there, the bacon is in the orange juice. And I'm like, well, most people know the bacon isn't in the orange juice. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on that. I'm not going to stick it in there. But when in doubt, stick it in there. So, right? We were taught to stick it in there. Lawyers love commas because you absolutely need to clarify. And I 100% agree with that. My late wife was a lawyer, so I get it. But again, I like to write succinctly. I like to keep my shit really simple. And so commas, me and punctuation, I love an N dash and an M dash. Those are my two things. So I'll give you an N dash and an M dash over a comma any day.
I mix those up
Ellipses.
too. I'm like, that looks really pretty right there.
Oh,
And Donnell's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, but it looks nice. And she's
no.
like, no, honey, no. And I'm like, but it's pretty.
But read it out loud.
Yeah.
But
But that doesn't work either because I pause all the time. And I'm like, because I'm thinking, but
I have to read it to her. And then
yeah,
she'll
she has to
hear
read it. And then I'm like, oh, or I do it on like the voice on Microsoft Word. I'll do it that. And I'm like, oh, okay. But I want to point out too, is that those reflections and what you're doing right now is another layer of healing,
yes.
Yeah.
right? So that must be very, very difficult for you to go through some of that, I would think.
And I asked about that too. I was
Mm.
like, do you have any ideas which one you want me to do?
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The black hole doesn't go away. Like
Right.
it's there. The difference is sometimes there's a little bit of mesh over it. Sometimes it's still a gaping wound. It depends. I have, so the tattoo that I told you about with the book, I also have, you probably can't see it. Well, anyway, there's her doodle heart. So there's a doodle heart on the book. And the tattooist, he is her favorite tattooist, and she couldn't get a tattoo because of all of the treatment that she was going through.
Right.
So I wrote to him, Corey Miller, and I said, hey, my late wife, she wasn't able to get a tattoo. She loved your work. I would love if you would do a memorial piece for me. And so he was like, yeah, sure. So, and he was like, I was talking with the assistant, and the assistant's like, yeah, so in 6 months from now, he can totally do it. And I was like, okay. So 6 months later, there I was, getting a Corey Miller tattoo. Like, I mean, so
Crazy.
to have him standing, like, and he asked me, talking, and I wasn't crying like the whole time I was, there. So there are some things that just don't bring back the tears.
Right.
Some things are just, fabulous memories. And it's not to say that, I could probably totally start crying right now if I just went down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But there's been enough time and enough healing to, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to find that right balance.
Yeah.
Of, okay, these reflections aren't all going to be,
yeah.
It's going to be like, hopefully, pull at your heartstrings, because it does. It still pulls at my heartstrings. The hole is still there. But there, it's also healed in some way. So it's trying to find that right balance. But I did make a point to definitely say, I'm like, there's some I probably just don't want to touch. Like, I don't want to talk about like the treatment. Like, I don't want to, that's no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So, but I've got a feeling we're gonna find the right balance. At least I hope so anyway.
I think you'll be just fine. So let's go back to coffee for a minute. Yeah.
Please.
And let's go back to the coffee for a second, because I hear that you like a certain kind of coffee. So you want to talk about the
Share.
the one that we have in common?
Uh-oh.
The Turkish coffee.
I think I know what it is.
So I was stationed in Turkey, and Greek and Turkish coffee. So Greek and Turkish, okay, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the coffee. Okay, we're going to talk about the coffee.
Yes.
So they both do it the way, very similar fashion. You have your container, the ibrik, as I know it in Turkish. And so the container, which is copper, and then you add the grinds, and then you add the sugar, and then you add the water. And so it's very thick and very chewy, if you will. But damn it, it's the best coffee on the planet. It really is. There's nothing like Greek and or Turkish coffee, whichever you want. I just call it chewy coffee,
Yeah.
just so that people don't hate on it.
Yeah.
Chewy coffee, and I do like it a little bit on the sweet side, so I do add a little extra sugar to it. But my favorite part about drinking that type of coffee is when you turn the cup upside down and you do the taziography, or the reading of the coffee grinds.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something so freaking cool about that. Especially, like I said, I have the best memories. Our favorite thing to do was pass the cup around after dinner, and we would all be drinking the coffee, and we would, oh, well, I see a horse's head, and I see a bolt of lightning, I see an eyeball, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
Somebody watching me, lightning, am I in trouble? So
Yeah.
we would just, again, connect over coffee. And that
Right.
was at 13, that was my first experience with connecting over coffee. And I've never forgotten it. And then, living in a coffee culture, it just, like I just fell in love. And I was like, these are my people. Like, anybody who wants to sit and talk and hang out and drink lots of coffee, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
All right, let's set a
a
date.
pure caffeine rush.
Place.
It is a wonderful thing.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pixie, definitely. I think it's like, it's not just like, I mean, caffeine's a drug. So of course it's going to be, it's addictive. It's going to have that sort of attachment to
But
memories
it's
and
a
it.
social form of taking in a vice and sharing it, and everyone is happy because everyone has drank the amazing dense caffeine that is Greek and Turkish coffee. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. But I admit, first time I did it, a few times, I did get mouthful of saturated grinds. I've learned to sip with my mouth closed now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you kind of have to use your teeth. You kind of have to like
Yeah.
filter it through and sip
Do
it
the
that
li-
way.
do the little slurp.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's an experience. If you don't know what you're doing, you just try to drink the coffee, you're like, well, maybe this is not for me. But again, it's that connection, having somebody there to walk you through it and the experience and be like, okay, here's how you do it. This is how you savor this moment. And I think, it doesn't matter what time it is that you have the coffee, because we used to go, my best friend and I, my older best friend, used to go to like IHOP in the middle of the night or Denny's in the middle of the night and just be like 2 o'clock in the morning, like, I need to talk, or I just need your company.
Yeah.
And we would drink coffee in the middle of the night. It didn't matter, because I think it's that warmth, right? It's that hearty warmth that you're always, and it's so strong. The smell brings back those memories too. Like, smell is a very deep, anchor to memory. So connecting the two is very, very special, I think, in that sense too.
Absolutely. So one of the things I learned, I don't have there were a few tools, again, during this, the difficult time that I went through.
Mhm.
And I had a therapist to kind of, help make sure that I was, going in the right direction, that I wasn't stuck. I want the one thing that I really wanted was, I just wanted to be on the other side of grief. I didn't want to be
Yes.
stuck in it. And I just wanted to be on the other side. And she's like, unfortunately, you have to go through it. And I'm like, but I don't want to go through it. I just want to be on the other side. Can I
I'm gonna
just,
bull through it.
yeah, I'm like, can I just be healed now? Can I just, and she's
Mhm.
like, no, it doesn't work that way. Damn it. And so she was like, okay, so what are the things that make you happy? And I'm like, coffee. And
Mhm.
so she was like, okay, what about coffee? And so I do every day, I start my day with coffee, and I do 5 senses meditation. She taught me 5 senses meditation. Now, 5 senses
Okay.
meditation can be whatever you want it to be.
Mhm.
For me, my 5 senses meditation is coffee. Because why? I can smell it.
Mhm.
I can feel the weight in the cup. I can see it. I can hear it being brewed.
Mm.
And then I can taste it. And so I literally do my 5 senses meditation every day with a freaking cup of coffee.
That's awesome.
So I start my day with joy. That is the basis of my day. It starts in a cup right there. Every day.
Every day.
Every day. Every day.
I think I make it even if I don't want it. Isn't that funny? I like if I don't, I mean, not that I don't ever want it, but there's some days where you're just like, I just want a small cup, but I'll make it just because I need to hear it and smell it
Mhm.
and just do that association. Yes,
Not,
Donnell.
but
Mhm.
it's not just the hearing, smelling. It's for me, it is meditative. That part's also meditative, but the whole process from
Hmm.
start to finish.
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
filling the water, getting the
Yes.
filter,
The ritual.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and I never knew why I do things in patterns
Hmm.
until, gee, somebody told me I should be tested for ADHD. Gee, I wonder who that was.
I
So,
don't know.
so
Oh.
apparently, yeah, undiagnosed all my life, but I do certain things in patterns, but yet other things are complete chaos. So, like, I will have a sink full of dishes. I know I'm supposed to do them, can't do them, but my cabinets, when I put them away, very organized. It's
Hmm.
just, but that whole ritual of getting the water and putting it in, and then the grounds, and just the first aroma when you open the container of the
Mhm.
ground.
Yes.
Mhm.
And it's just like, and
It's
then
like the
just count,
Folgers commercial.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just counting out
Yeah.
my scoops. And then if something breaks that pattern, I have to take the filter, dump it back in, and start all
Hmm.
over because I lost count of my scoops. But
Yep.
and then you're right, listening to it and smelling it and
Mm.
taking my creamer and pouring it in there.
Yep.
And
Pixie,
Yeah.
you
then
wanted
late,
to add something?
so yeah.
As coffee aficionados, I have to ask the horrible, controversial, dark question. Do you also ever drink room temperature, day old coffee?
Hell
To me,
yeah.
there is no coffee off limits.
Right.
No coffee
Cat,
off lunch.
cat has a hairball. I got to mute.
Not that coffee. Yeah,
Ice,
so coffee
cold
is
brew.
coffee, and sometimes because when you have coffee that's been a while, it has a certain chemical reaction. So that
Mhm.
coffee is a different coffee, but it's still coffee nonetheless, and it's still just as good.
Well,
Absolutely.
it's like because you change it when you do a cold brew versus an iced
Hmm.
versus hot,
Hmm.
I
versus
put the
hot
whole
and then sit out.
French, I put the whole French press in the fridge
Yes, that's how I
Mhm.
used
and
to make
drink
my
it the
cold
next
my
day.
my cold brew.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I haven't made
Yeah.
any cold brew.
So
So
you
it's not a capital offense. I've been told
No.
that not drinking hot coffee, only fresh, is
Mm-mm.
capital offense, and I should be murdered for drinking. Oh, that coffee is 2 days old and it's still in the coffee pot from an
I've
observatory session. Gimme. It's still good. It
I've
was close.
microwaved a cup of coffee because I don't
I
care.
do it all
It's
day because I
coffee.
always
I
forget.
do. Yeah.
I have a warmer by my desk and I will
Yeah.
forget to turn the bitch on. And then I'll go to take a drink and it's cold. Now I will drink it cold. That's not a problem. But sometimes you just want that heat,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
So I'm like, well, damn. So I have to go downstairs and I have to heat it up in the microwave. And then I come upstairs and I'm like, okay, the little yellow light's on. That means I'm good. So yeah. All right, before we get on to anything else, what I'd like to do before our next guest shows up, and I don't want to be able to be rude like I was before and just kind of jumping back and forth, but Michelle, please tell us where to find your podcast, any information that you'd like to share, as well as your, like socials and things like that. And that way, when we do have to switch over, we know where you're at.
Yes. Thank you. So first off, thank you so much for hanging out. This was absolutely lovely, and I know that we could probably all nerd out and talk about coffee and rocks and
Yes.
you know
Golf balls.
words. So thank you so much for letting me hang out with you guys and drink some coffee.
Hmm.
And then to where to find the show, my book information, all of that stuff. I have everything on my website,
Hmm.
coffeefueledstories.com. Everything is there, so you can find out about the book, the podcast. I'm also on Podbean. We are on Podbean,
Hmm.
and that is where we do all of the sharing and the comments and all of that fun stuff. The show itself is actually on almost all different platforms if you listen on other platforms. So it's out there as well. And I just said, like I said, I just want to say thank you again so much for having me on the show. And I apologize for being extremely pink. It's very warm in my room here. My cheeks are. I'm so hot right now. I'm like dying
Oh,
of heat in here. So I apologize for being so pink.
well, we just thought we made you blush, girl.
Yeah,
That too. That too.
I have sympathy blushing.
Yeah.
Hot
But
flash.
one of the things that I love about Michelle is she loves being part of the team. So we came together because again we're sister podcasts, and as soon as we found out they were working together, we have very similar podcast. Uh, she was all in. She was like, "Okay, let's work together." And so together we've sort of just put these ideas together to share. And the reason why I bring that up is because it is very important for people who are in an indie industry to network. It is very important for us to help each other. So I want to bring that up because it seems to be a failing point. There's no competition. Listen, there are millions of books and podcasts out there. We got to be like the ants. We got to kind of like link together and float on the water because if we don't, we're just going to float away. And I really want to thank you for how amazing you've been in sharing. I know I'm super busy, you're super busy. But Michelle does this full time, guys. So this is her full time gig, and this is the empire she's building. And so, she's got a little bit more time than I do, not because she has less to do. It's just that she doesn't have the full time job as well as this. This is her full time job. So again, we want to support each other. Always want to make sure that we, share things. That when we're in conversation with other people, mention somebody else. This is one of the rules that I've had in networking since I started was I always will talk about myself, and always before I leave that conversation, make a mention of a recommendation. By the way, if you like my podcast, you should check out Coffee Fueled Stories as well, because I think it's important to being genuine. It's important to pay back people who have helped you, and it's also important to building really strong relationships. So thank you again for being so amazing. We've all become friends, and it's just amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And like I said, I loved your very first episode when you guys had the yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I suck at that too. Sorry. So don't take it personally. I don't do that here. This is me. This is me. Okay. This
Yeah.
is I love you. I
Yeah.
love you. Okay.
Mhm.
So your very first episode, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And like I
Thank
said,
you.
I shared it. I told everybody, go check it out. Listen, listen, listen.
Mhm.
And anybody who will listen, I will tell them like, go listen to this show, go read the magazine.
Thank you.
I'm here to help share and support. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I created the podcast. I just want
Right.
to help share and support. That's it.
Right. Well,
Yep.
thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and we hope you'll come back again soon.
Thank you.
And
Take care,
and
guys.
anytime
Bye.
you want anybody on our podcast over to you, you let me know. I'm gonna kick them right over there.
Absolutely. Like right here. Share and share alike.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Okay, we're gonna stick her back in the basement. There we go. Down in the basement. Pixie will take good care of you in your body bag. Everything will be fine. We
Okay,
do have
thank
some other
you.
guests, hopefully, that will be appearing here shortly. I know Tommy's going to be here, but we have a little bit of time for us. I didn't bring my coffee, which was stupid. I should have brought it over for our coffee field stories. So I'll pretend. Pixie, tell us a little bit about what you got going on because you've had some pretty amazing news.
Which news? I've
All
been
kinds
up
of
to a lot of.
All of it.
acceptances, all kinds of it. Go for it.
Yes. I got my first Southern Gothic ghost story that I didn't even know I could write accepted into an anthology
Hmm.
edited by Lisa Vasquez, ironically. I don't want to. I'm terrified. I got into Penumbric which is a very prestigious, dark speculative and science fiction magazine. And I just got an acceptance letter from Amazing Stories.
Oh my gosh, how incredible.
Yay!
How incredible. So tell us what that's been like. You've had so much success like back to back to back. I'm sure it's both exciting and overwhelming. So tell us a little bit about that.
I'm still processing it, and I'm doing the Stafford challenge, which is write a poem a day for an entire year.
Oh,
I've been
wow.
doing it since January 17th, and there are days sometimes it's 3 poems.
Hmm.
So, it's I'm just writing and submitting and getting rejections and then doing it again and again and again and again.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and Weird Fiction Quarterly. I'm making my debut. I wrote a 500-word prose, which I had never done before,
Hmm.
and did it.
That's awesome.
So
That's
I'm just
incredible.
doing things. I'm
Yeah.
writing and getting lots of rejections and getting acceptances.
That's awesome.
It
And
feels weird.
I really wanted you to bring that up because I know Donnell has been trying to get herself to start writing a little bit more too. And you guys are, I started off as a writer and then I went into a publisher and I, kind of stepped behind the scenes, whereas you guys were always behind the scenes being a publisher and kind of
Mhm.
just, doing your own thing. And, poetry is very private sometimes and very intimate and vulnerable.
I'm an
So I can
editor
see where,
proofreader.
yeah, so that's where I'm going. Like you guys have both been, doing the editor scene. So stepping into the limelight can be pretty scary. Like how would
Mhm.
you get all those rejections and people are like, well, don't they feel bad? But I think once you get a bunch of rejections, that one acceptance is like, fuck all that, like honestly, who cares about the rejections now? I've been validated. It's all good from there. So how has it been to step out into the limelight?
And
Oh,
they hurt.
there she goes.
And eventually you're just like, oh, it's a rejection, no big
Hmm.
deal. And you just do it. But I didn't
Yeah,
submit for 30 years. So you can always start writing more and submitting. You just have to do it and realize
yeah,
it will sting occasionally. You'll really want to get in, and sometimes you won't.
right.
Keep trying for that market. You will probably eventually break it. The more they see your name, the more they notice you.
Yeah, yeah. Danielle, did you have any questions about that for her?
Um, no, I thought I did, but she pretty much touched on the whole. I have to get out of my own way.
You have to get out of your own head sometimes, I think.
I do have to get out of my own head.
Yeah,
The squirrels need to
Just have
be
to
put
do
to
it.
sleep.
yeah.
And
Sleep
I
or hold.
am a firm believer, though, you are never too old to achieve a dream.
Yeah,
Um, about you don't
Absolutely
you
not.
don't fail at a dream unless you don't keep it. Um, it's the only way you lose a dream is you give up on it. Um, and it's still there. And yeah, a lot of things floating around. In fact, I was listening to uh, somebody who quoted Ragnar Lothbrok on a Viking channel I was listening to earlier
hmm,
today, and I was just like, it touched. It just right in there. It's like an arrow to the head. Like, fuck everybody else.
yeah,
They're my words, and if I want to say them, I want to write them, I want to sing them from the mountaintops. It's just a matter of disciplining myself to sit down and do it.
right. You fail every
And
chance you don't take.
yeah, so
Hmm.
And as long as you're alive, you can write, you can
mhm,
create that legacy.
Hmm.
You
yep.
just have to do it. Uh, I didn't submit for 30 years.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't see Spat is in our green room. Let's go ahead and
Oh,
bring him in. Let's go ahead and bring him in. There he is. Oh my goodness.
I have
Hey.
No,
food.
no,
We
they're on the
didn't
floor.
see you in
My
there.
dog is
Oh
like,
my
"Where's
Can
gosh.
I
Fluff?"
go down to the basement?
No, no, they're okay. They're in the phone. They're in the phone.
I am so sorry. We were just
Oh,
talking away. I'm like, he'll
puppy,
be here any
No
minute.
problem.
can I
It's all
can
right.
I go down into the basement?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead. Go in the basement. Check on our
I need to
bodies.
go down in the basement. They just brought a new cadaver in, and I'm really hungry, and I need to check on a few people. So I'll
Okay,
be
make
back.
sure you get the thigh. Okay.
Oh, look at that. Like
So there we
more
go.
graphic in the background too.
Oh, you didn't see that last time, huh?
No, I didn't. Walking
Mm.
around so much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is our next guest. We brought him up to the basement. He is nice and fresh. Spat, will you tell us a little bit about you and what you do, please?
Sure. My name is Spat. I'm a special effects makeup artist, and I also make costumes and props. I'm living here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm actually back in Matt Green's studio again. That 5 day job turned into 3 weeks now,
Oh,
or
wow.
will be three
whoa.
weeks when we're done. And
Uh-huh.
so I'm back over here, 12-hour days doing props for this new film. So
Okay.
it's work, but it's work that you love, so you can't help it. And I
Yeah.
brought my dog today, so
Oh,
she's
we
the
like to see the
studio
pups.
security.
Oh.
Oh,
Her
does
name
your
is
baby?
Adora. Can you say hi, Adora?
Hi. Hi,
Oh.
baby.
So it's
Who is
been pet
talking?
day. Yeah, it's been pet day today. My daytime job had my boss got a new dog, and then everybody decided to show their new dog. So I was just booping the screen back and forth,
Nice.
back and forth. So where'd you get the name Adora?
Short for adorable. That was the
Nice,
idea kind of behind it.
nice. I
She
love
was a
it.
rescue. I saw a thing on the news about a hoarder house that they found. A
Oh,
couple called in, said that they had a couple of dogs they couldn't take care of. The
yeah.
health department, whatever, showed up. They had 35 dogs in the house. They didn't even know that they were there.
Oh
Horrible
my God.
conditions. Everything had fleas, all malnourished. Condemned the house, took the dogs, went back a few days later, found 15 more dogs they
Oh,
didn't know
boy.
were there, including
Oh my
these
God.
newborn pups. I saw the pictures. I
Oh,
was heartbroken. I followed that shelter on Facebook. As soon as those pups came up for adoption at 8 weeks, I adopted this little monster.
oh.
Oh,
Well, thank you for that because
You're
it's a
welcome.
definite need.
Yeah.
Um, the shelters, especially with a lot of the natural disasters, they're overrun.
Oh yeah.
And, just a lot of horrible stories with that. So thank you. So tell us a little bit about how you got started with special effects.
So I fell into it kind of by accident. I hated horror. I feel like we're telling the story again for those who
I
don't know.
know.
We did
Shh.
this already. And it's so sad that you missed it because I told all those horrible sex stories about the famous
Yes.
celebrities, and it's just gone now. You can never get that back. So we're sorry
I
about that.
won't tell if you won't.
So I hated horror movies growing up, and my dad used to make me watch every one when they came out because he thought it would toughen me up and it would make me unafraid of anything. And
Yeah.
it just terrified me, gave me nightmares. And so then one day I saw a movie called FX
Mhm.
about special effects, which in reality has absolutely nothing to do. Nothing in there is
Mm.
actual special effects. It's all horribly fake and bad, even by movie standards.
Yeah.
But it gave me the feeling of, oh, wait a minute, people can do this. Like I knew movies were fake, but it still
Yeah.
gave me it flicked a switch in my
Yeah.
brain. And so then I went out, I bought a Fangoria magazine. I looked in the back for all the different things people were selling. I bought some foam latex and some other materials. I had no idea how to use any of it. And I kind of learned pretty quickly that I was really good at making just about anything look disgusting. Like I could take any little material and just make it look gross, and it was
Uh-huh.
my skill. And I messed around with it in high school and a little bit in college, doing student films for other people. I was there for criminal justice, but I would work on other people's student films. And then I went to real life, graduated. I was a property manager in Brooklyn, doing these warehouses and factories. And then somebody saw some pictures. I made a website, and someone saw pictures of the makeup that I did in high school and college, and thought it was recent, and then hired me for a zombie movie. And I had
Mhm.
absolutely no idea what I was doing, but I accepted, started doing it. It was kind of my spare time thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a full month. I was doing it on weekends and nights and whatnot. And that led to another job, and that led to making some costumes and for myself and some friends, and people seeing them and saying, "Oh, can you make me one?" And then that went on from there, and it got to the point where I was making more money and doing more work in that aspect than I was in property management. And so I said, "That's it. It's time to shift gears and become
Yeah.
a full-time, art guy."
and
And I did that
you
for a long
and
time, and then fell into organizing and running conventions and Comic
mm,
Cons and stuff like that for Wizard and for other Big Apple and other shows in New York. Sorry, it's dusty in here.
you're good.
And that's where I am today. I'm actually working on this new film. I mean, nobody made me sign an NDA, so I guess I can say the name. Well, I Love Boosters,
Uh,
and directed by Boots Riley, and I'm also organizing a comic convention in New York called Elite Comics 11 Expo New York.
where in
So
New York is that going to be?
it'll be at St. John's in Queens.
Okay.
So I'm
Okay.
trying to book some guests. So we should have a big guest announcement hopefully in the next few days.
That's awesome. How are you finding time to balance both?
I don't have this is crazy.
Like I
I
don't.
promise people costumes for Halloween, and I make some, do some Etsy Halloween stuff. And I thought I had plenty of time to make everything. And then this 5-day job turned into now 2 weeks, and it'll be
Yeah.
maybe 1 or 2 more after this. So I
Mm,
don't know. I don't know how I'm having time. I basically work here 12 hours, go home, another 2 to 3 hours of making stuff at home and doing calls here and there, and then
mm,
sleep, wake up, do some more costumes at home, then come here and do this. It's crazy, but it's the film industry is feast and famine. So if
that's
you
right.
don't take the feast, you're going to live in the famine. So I'm
Yeah.
taking every job I can do. If I have to sleep 2 hours a night and be, hopped up on 80 gallons of coffee a day, I will do it for these 3 weeks, and then who knows when the next job will be after that. So you
Right.
got to
Yeah.
accept it.
Yeah.
So wait, you do sleep?
Mostly standing up,
Allegedly.
in
Allegedly.
front of a
Are
bandsaw.
you?
Uh,
Are we talking car naps or
Yeah, it's
actually?
mostly car naps and then that little bit of sleep at home, like very little, very little. The
Yeah.
dog makes me like she's like, you gotta lay down, and I'll sit in your lap, and that's it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'll take 5.
There you go.
So how
But it
did
is.
you get from where you were at okay, so let's back up a little. We went to criminal justice, then we started making things and we got
Mhm.
noticed for that. Where did the Comic Cons come in from there?
So I started off, mostly attending conventions as a fan in
Hmm.
costume, and one day we were there, and some guy was like, who we'd met at other conventions, he was running security for a Chiller convention, Chiller Theater in New
Hmm.
Jersey. And he saw us, outside. We were about to get online to buy our tickets. The line was like out the door and down the block. And we said, to hell with it. Went in costume to the bar in the hotel. We're like, let's just have a couple of drinks first. Then we'll go wait in line. He saw us and was like, oh, do you guys want to work security for the convention? We're shorthanded. Said, okay, work security. Next thing we know, I had Richard Keel. He was the Jaws from Moonraker, and he was in Happy
Oh yeah.
Gilmore, the giant, like six
Hmm.
foot 8, 9, whatever guy.
Yeah.
He was. I was working for him at the convention, helping him out, with his line and everything. And then he turns to me and he goes, "Can you help me go to the bathroom?" And I was like, "No, I don't do that. Like, that's not." He's like, "No, I need you to, escort me." I'm like, "Oh yeah, no problem." He gets up. His hand was bigger than my entire head. Just this
Yeah.
massive guy. What I didn't understand was help me go to the bathroom, escort me meant use me as a human cane. He
Yeah.
put his hand on the back of my neck and literally used me as a cane, compacting my spine. And like I walked there, like, and it as we're walking into the men's room, I realized it looks like he has his hand around my neck
Yeah.
and he's forcing me into the men's room.
That's great.
Like, and I'm like, it's kind of funny. Like, he's like, oh yeah. He's like, well, if you ever do that again, I'll kill you. And I'm like, no, it's not funny if you're bringing me into the men's room. So
Yeah,
on the way out,
exactly.
he did it
Oh
again.
my God.
If you ever do, I'm like, now it's kind of rude. And
Yeah.
really great guy. He was hilarious. It's funny stories. But next thing I know, I went to another convention, paid my admission, and I was like, this is boring. Like
Yeah.
I want that experience again of working with the celebrities and doing all the crazy stuff. So I
Yeah.
started volunteering with more and more conventions, and then that led to being a little bit more involved. And then I went. It was 2007, 2006. I went to 2007. I went to the Big Apple convention in New York
Hmm.
to ask about being a guest because I was doing makeup, and at the time I
Yeah.
was getting convention gigs, doing makeup demos at shows. So I went there to ask about doing makeup at another show, a future show, and one of the guys working there was like, "Oh, do you know anything about audio equipment?" And I'm like, "No, not really." And he's like, "Oh, Gigi Edgley from Farscape wanted to do wanted to sing, and they needed help with the amps, and they couldn't wire them, so I helped with that." And
Mm.
I thought that was, the end of my night. And then I watched as the owner of the convention was laying out a map of where Hayden Panettiere would be signing from Heroes, was going to sign the next day at the convention, and just glanced at it. And I said, that won't work. You've got the exit line crossing the entrance line. It's going to
Yeah.
create a huge clusterfuck. It's going to be a mess. And he was like,
Yeah.
well, how would you do it? So I drew it out, a way to let the. And then I'm probably lost audio. You still there?
Yeah, we're
Yep.
here.
My alarm went off again, and I think I got it this time. And I said, this is how I would do it coming in. And he was like, okay, great. Tomorrow, set that up first thing. I'm like, I don't work here. He was like, oh, you do now. And he put me in a hotel room. And the next thing I know, I'm running the lines for Hayden Panettiere and for Kristen Bell and like all the celebrities. And I'm just, but now it was more staff than a volunteer. Like I was A, getting paid, and B,
Yeah.
like more involved with it. And that led to running the Big Apple shows for a while. I did that for a bunch of years, became like a part owner.
Yeah.
And it was it's spare time. It's not a full-time job. It's the
Mm.
kind of thing that you do, as it's coming up. So I was still doing makeup, I was still doing movies, still doing costumes. And then Wizard World announced they were going to come to New York
Hmm.
at the same time that New York Comic Con switched their dates from February to October. The convention world, this was a big deal
Yes.
because Big Apple was in November. So, we thought that by them moving to October would kill our show. And then Wizard was going to come to New York and it was going to create this huge war. And the owner of Big Apple thought that they were just going to get crushed under. So he decided to sell to Wizard.
Yeah.
And he sold and then brought me over to Wizard World to their office to kind of explain to them what the convention, what he does, what they do, because I kind of know conventions pretty well. So I went over there. I was actually happy to be out of the convention thing because it would give me more time for other stuff. I
Yeah.
went to Wizard World. I explained what people don't like about New York Comic Con, what people don't like about Wizard, how to mend the two, how to kind of create a new thing that the fans would like. And they were like, great, can you start tomorrow? And I was like, no, I don't work here. Like, this is not my job. And they
Yeah.
kept throwing money at me. So I said, yes. I started, it was a 9 to 5 in an office in Manhattan, doing conventions for a living, 9 shows a year. My first show was Wizard World Philly with like 25,000 attendees. Like, no idea. Like, I was running everything now. And then
Yeah.
my second show for Wizard was Chicago, 70,000 attendees, just massive, massive convention. And I'm running around, just running it all and doing that. I did that for like 2 years
Mm.
and then went back to kind of the Big Apple stuff. And I ran WinterCon and EternalCon. I helped run those shows for the autograph area and the celebrity taking care of things. And then COVID hit and it all kind of like went away. And now it's
Yeah.
finally starting to come back again, for me at least. Conventions have come back, but for me, organizing them, it's starting to come back again.
Well, that's awesome. So we actually have Tommy Clark on with us right now, and Tommy's actually he goes to the conventions in New York as well.
Okay.
So I don't know if you caught where he said that convention is going to be that he's now organizing. Did you, Tommy?
No.
Oh, it's Elite Comic 11's. It's a weird name. Elite Comics 11 Expo, New York. I didn't pick it. It's going to be at St. John's University, March 8th through 9th. And it's going to be heavy comic book stuff. Really, really heavy on comics.
Are you going to have an artist alley with like authors and things like that?
It's not going to be. They don't want to do a standard show, so there's not going to be an autograph area. There's not going to be an artist alley. There will be a couple of big name celebrities and a couple of big name artists, but not a standard artist alley. So they kind of want to change the mold a little bit and try something different.
Okay.
What year did you start working with Wizworld?
2009. I went 2009 to 2011. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so you were running them when I was playing HeroClix.
Okay. I still have a giant box of horror clicks that at one point Wizard World had a giant.
I lost mine.
Yeah, let me know.
I literally lost them. My heart.
It's only one character. It's one case of whatever exclusive character but it's all I have. Wizard World had a giant warehouse because they used to sell stuff, and then they closed the warehouse. And I lived in New York, and this was upstate New York, and I had a van, so they made me clean out and put it all in my garage. And then when they fired me, and then changed companies, like it went from a normal company to publicly traded with a CEO and a board of directors, like it. They shut down the old company and opened up it as a new name. Nobody ever called me to get the stuff back, and that was 15 years ago.
Yep, it's yours now.
Well, HeroClix went through changes, so WizKids runs.
And I can't remember which character. Some girl with a knife, like it's a horror one. I don't remember which exclusive, but I've got a case of those for some reason.
A girl with a knife?
That's why I have a Supergirl tattoo on my arm, by the way.
There you go.
It's because of HeroClix. I pulled
Nice.
I pulled a Supergirl piece in a sealed convention tournament. It was the first tournament I won.
Oh,
I developed a little Supergirl fetish out of that.
I may have one of the HeroClix exclusive ones. It's like an Iron Man and like all the main Marvel characters, but with it's just a little blister pack, like a vacuum form tray with all of them in there with a lid. It didn't come with any paperwork or anything. It was one of those weird exclusives from Wizard.
well, that's cool. So let's go back to the special effects. We kind of discussed it another time. So how do you make sure that or do you make sure that your special effects, like when you're doing horror, dismembered limbs, bloody eye, how do you make sure that they stay authentic, or do you just go for aesthetic of your own?
I usually just drive around till I can find a drifter,
Mm-hmm.
get them, grab a hacksaw, and just see how it looks. Then try and replicate that on film. No, I know a lot of people that try really hard. Like Savini. I call. You guys still hear me?
We hear you. Yep.
All right. My phone sometimes tries that. So some people try to do a very specific match what they see. I try and make it look stylized. I want it to give that impression of the gore, but I don't want. I don't like looking at real gore. I have friends who are EMTs and cops. They used to always send me pictures of whatever gross thing they found in the subway, and I hate that. I don't want to see gory real things. I want the stylized Hollywood version of the gore. That's what I try and replicate. Where I think a sinew and a bone would be. It doesn't have to be accurate, as long as I feel like it looks good in that mess of tissue and gore.
And you're lucky you're not a writer, because we have to be accurate. We have to be completely accurate.
3 novels. I did 2 books about conventions that are fiction, wink, wink, of the behind the scenes of conventions, of kind of what really goes on, what the actors really do, and they're pretty good. If you're in the convention world, you'll probably recognize.
Well, my favorite convention moment was at a New York Comic-Con about 10 years ago. I went there with Brian McKevitt, one of our staff members from the magazine.
Mutual friend.
Yep, I know Brian.
And it was great. We were going over to talk to Tommy Dreamer, and when we were waiting in line for Tommy Dreamer to show up, Hulk Hogan got pretty mad that the Green Ranger had a longer line than him. Hulk Hogan actually complained to management to do something about it.
Oh, Terry.
Yeah.
Well, I've had where we had Brenda from 90210. Why can't I think of her name?
Shannon Doherty.
Yep. I got her to do her first convention, and she showed up, and we set her up, and as she put up her sign, William Shatner's line just went right over to her because it was her first ever appearance, and Shatner got upset and left. Like, he was annoyed that she got everybody, and she was crazy.
It was pretty funny watching Anthony Daniels make fun of Hulk Hogan, though.
Yeah,
that I would like to see. Anthony Daniels is interesting.
He's a character, that's for sure.
Go ahead, Donnell.
Okay, so Tommy touched on the whole accuracy. Lisa mentioned about getting the look right. My question is, and this is because from
I lost your audio.
Yeah, there you go. Did your audio go off? Did you hit it? She hit it.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. My husband and I will be watching a movie, and he can be very eagle-eyed. I'm listening to the dialogue
Mm.
to see if it meshes well, and the music and all that, and if does the music fit. He'll see things and point it out. Continuity errors.
Oh yeah, this always happens.
How do
On a
you
film
keep that
set, we
straight?
call it continuity schmontinuity. Like
Yeah.
nobody, it's almost impossible because you're filming
Yeah.
so far out of order
Mhm.
on
Right.
most things. It's so hard to do,
Mhm.
especially things like if somebody gets sprayed with blood in one scene, but then we film the ending 5 days before that, so we have to will look like, but then it's impossible. It's impossible to do perfectly. You do it as best you can and hope no one looks.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Hope no
part
one
2 of
freeze
that
frames and watches. There's so many continuity errors.
part 2 of that now has become, you just said about the blood splatter,
Mhm.
and do you ever look at a scene and be like, "Yeah, that's not right." I mean, blood splatter, there's a
Oh,
science to that.
there
Do you
is absolutely, and I see a lot of makeup artists, get lazy and in there, when I don't know if it's just one of those new things, they use the back of a paintbrush and just kind of
Yeah.
flick.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's not how blood sprays at all.
Mhm.
As soon as I see that little trail, I'm like, that's a paintbrush flick, and it's
Yeah.
not very good. And some people, for some reason, like doing it. I see cosplayers do it all the time because it's a quick way to do it, but it's really not accurate, and it's just ugly.
Mhm.
There's the toothbrush method to get a little spatter. There's a new I got a 3D printed airbrush piece that you fit on the front of your airbrush that puts like a little post in front of the nozzle so that when
Yeah.
you spray paint, it hits that and then spatters around it. And that's good for
Nice.
doing little bits of spatter.
Yeah.
And honestly, most of the time, if I have someone get sprayed, we take pictures, and then you have to go in by hand the next day and paint that in
Ugh.
one drop at a time. It's a huge pain in the ass, but
Yeah.
that's the only way to make it actually match. And even that's not accurate because in reality, pieces fleck off, pieces, of blood.
Mhm.
It never stays the same from 1 minute to the
Mhm.
next.
Yeah.
People wipe
So
it.
it's really hard to make that accurate. And again, continuity, schmontinuity. The show must go
Right.
on. We're telling an overall story. If you're looking at this one tiny piece, we're not doing our job, but with the storytelling, you should be
Right.
so involved in the whole thing that you
Yeah.
don't notice the minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
don't. I don't.
Yeah.
He does. I notice the words. He's
Mhm.
noticing the visual, and it's like, "What?" And he'll rewind it.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
that's
I
Yeah,
a
agree.
no.
that's a
That's
That's
a
why
calm
we miss
down.
the old days when things would air once and never again. That's it.
Exactly.
All I can
so
think of when you talk about the paintbrush is that that's the Wilhelm scream of special effects.
yeah.
Yeah, but except I look for the Wilhelm and I like it when I find it. I don't like the paintbrush spatter when I
Mhm.
find it.
True.
But yeah.
So what kind of trends did you used to really enjoy? Like that was like one of my favorite trends. And what are some of the newer ones in special effects that you're starting to be like, you know what, that's kind of a cool thing that they're doing there?
Well, I mean, as makeup wise, the old days it was all foam latex. Like everything was
Hmm.
foam latex. It's a great material for what it is. It lets you do things. It breathes. It looks more like skin for the most part, but it's hard to blend. And
Yeah.
once you start sweating, it absorbs the moisture and then starts to swell. It's a hard thing to use. Then it was silicone, and then the transfers, and now encapsulated silicone. So it keeps kind of changing and morphing as those materials become cheaper to use and a little bit easier to use.
Mm.
I like encapsulated silicone. I think it's brilliant. It's a great material where it's like a plastic bald cap material on the top and the bottom, but in the middle is squishy silicone. And
Mm.
when you apply it, you can blend off the edges beautifully with acetone. It just melts the cap plastic and leaves an edge that's invisible. And especially these days with high def, everything's 8K. You
Mm.
can't have an edge. A slight seam on there is just going to be so obvious in
Yeah.
new thing. Um, I watched, I forget which Captain America it was, but there was a shot, like one shot, where it was the one with Bucky. He's fighting him at the end, and one scene he turns around, he's got like a scar on his cheek, and you can tell they didn't stipple the edge, and it's
Oh
just a
yeah.
flat, like against, like there's no pores on that
Yeah.
one section, and it's like, oh, like again,
You
it's
ran out of
not
time.
movie error, it's just
That was a
I see that.
reshoot error.
It
Yeah.
was probably a pickup, and then somebody made something really quick and didn't stipple it. And I'm sure every time they watch it, they cringe. I can't watch. Like I watch my own stuff, and I'm like, I missed that spot, I missed that. And everybody else is
Yeah.
like, that was great. Like, but I'm looking at this. I'm looking at it in
Sure.
a completely different way than anyone else. It was the
Exactly.
same way we're doing. So we're doing props for this new movie, and we're making everything super detailed. It's supposed to be very clean. There's no weathering or battle damage, which I love. So we have to make everything pristine, and every little tiny pin prick of something I'm like we're fretting over and bring it to set. And they're like, this looks great. I'm like, thank God. So it's like they didn't see
Yeah.
or whatever. Because they're looking at it in a completely different light. I'm looking at it like this close, and they're looking at it from 6 feet away, and it looks fantastic. So
Yeah.
hopefully it'll all work out.
Is there a movie or series even that you're like, damn, that was probably my favorite as far as the special effects go?
I mean, American Werewolf in London is one of my favorite. Is probably one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Yes.
I cringed. I watched it through my fingers, but it was so good. Everything in there was so beautiful. Like just literally reinventing the genre.
Yes.
These days, I don't know. Slasher horror got boring. There's no story. Then you have some really good story-driven horror that doesn't have a lot of gore, and it's hard to find that balance. Classic 80s horror, Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers were, so iconic, even if they were, not the greatest movies. It wasn't Shakespeare, but, it was something that became iconic in its own way. And I haven't seen a new movie where I'm like, that's the new, Jigsaw, they're trying, like, it's a great movie, but, and it became an icon, but I think only because there's 90,000 movies of it, and it, forced itself into the zeitgeist, whether it wanted to be there or not. But I haven't seen there's no new Freddy, there's no new Michael Myers, there's no new Jason that we've seen. They've tried it, even, Alien, The Thing, Jaws, there's no new creature either. Like,
there is.
What, A Good Place or A Quiet Place ones are okay, but I wouldn't. Maybe the one.
Well, let's go to the slashers.
Which one?
Art the Clown.
Art the Clown is good, but it's just got a clown suit. Like it's not like
he's dude. Have you watched the Terrifier movie?
No, I haven't watched Terrifier yet. I know I need to.
You need to watch Terrifier 3.
I keep saying
Tommy's been talking about this for like 2 weeks.
Is that the gags
and
that they
apparently,
use in it?
Demi Moore film. Everybody's telling me I have to go watch too.
All right, this year we've got it's the polar opposite of In a Violent Nature. It was released earlier this year. A Violent Nature kind of screwed the pooch, in my opinion, when it didn't go places that it could have gone. The wood splitter scene could have been a vivisection or a bisection. I would have loved to have seen what we didn't see on screen in Bone Tomahawk in that movie. And guess what? We get it in Terrifier 3 with a chainsaw.
Yeah. Tommy's been ranting about this movie for like 2 weeks, so it's going to be your homework.
I don't like the movie.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like slasher movies. They're not my thing. I'm an American Werewolf in London guy. I'm a folk horror guy.
Oh, baby. That's Adora.
Too much.
That's Adora. He's going to show you his now.
No, she's gone. She's downstairs with Mom.
Oh.
Yep. So's mine. Downstairs.
So if you had the chance, Scott, to work on, if somebody said, "Hey, you have to choose one movie. You don't have a choice. It's going to save the world, or it's going to save Adora. You have to choose one movie to remake. What would you do?"
Oh God.
Ooh, remake or just remake?
Remake well.
Oh, okay. I would go with The Howling. I think we need a new werewolf movie.
We do.
We have the Wolfman this year.
Oh, but like,
I have faith in this Wolfman because the guy did.
That's going to be interesting. I wish. Yeah. I mean, they were supposed to be redoing the whole Universal horror thing with the Mummy, but that didn't quite work out.
They shot that down when Invisible Man did so well. They gave that guy the keys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's doing Wolfman now. They're doing a Frankenstein next.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. I'd love, I mean, I'm partial to, I'm very biased towards Frankenstein. So anytime I see a Frankenstein movie, I'm all about it. But anyway, so when it comes down to that remake, um, which one would you, okay, so we would ask for which one you would do well. Which one would you just remake?
To do something silly, like a
Yeah, to
bad
have fun.
remake,
Yeah.
Creep Show.
Oh, nice.
Another weird
Yes.
anthology with modern, effects and newer
Yeah.
stories. That whole thing. It was so much fun. Like it was just great at the time. I mean, and also Ted Danson buried in the beach.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a fun thing.
Awesome.
That
All
was
right.
pretty awesome.
Unfortunately, guys, I have to get back to work. We're going to be here for
Okay.
a few more hours making pieces. So it was
Thank
great
you
talking to you
again.
guys.
Thank you
Hopefully,
again.
we'll
I
talk
appreciate it.
soon. Say goodnight, Adora. Say bye.
Bye,
Bye,
Adora.
Dora.
All
Bye
right, guys.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, we're going to stick him back in the basement. We're going to go check on Pixie. Let's see. Let's see if she's ready.
Oh, it looks like Pixie's in Skinamarink.
There she is.
Hello.
Hello, Miss Pixie. Did you get all the bodies organized?
Yes, they're all sorted out. A few of them are still chilling, but at least I had a snack.
Did you have a corpsicle?
Corpse.
Yes, and I got the thigh.
Good job.
Sometimes
All
it's
right.
good to be the necromancer.
So, Miss Pixie, you were busy, so we brought Tommy back up from the basement. He was getting a little stiff. So we made sure that we brought him back up while you were
Are you
busy
fully
taking care of the other
defrosted?
ones.
What?
Tommy, are you fully defrosted?
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. So, Tommy, if you would, since we already kind of got an introduction to you a little bit, tell us who you are, what you write, and a little background about why you're here.
I'm the senior columnist at this magazine. All that means
That's a
is
good
that
start.
I'm opinionated.
Not
call
Tommy.
it that. Nah, not me. I write splatterpunk with a full core. It leans into full core, so we call it splatter folk. I didn't come up with that term. A couple of my reviewers did, not just one, two of them did. So I'm going to run with that ball. It's organic,
yeah.
given to you like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that our guest earlier was talking about An American Werewolf in London. And the best example of my style of splatterpunk is that movie. Last year, I sent out kits to some TikTokers to give them an idea of what my fiction was like. And in those kits, I included copies of Dracula, the book, because it's the first full horror book.
Yeah.
And also a DVD copy of the American Werewolf in London movie.
Awesome.
And a print of the American Werewolf in London Werewolf.
I didn't get that, but I know you're ready. So.
Memento Mori Inc. artist James P. McCampbell, he did that artwork. So
that's awesome.
I sent postcards of those out with the kits too. They were nice kits. They cost me a few dollars. I got absolutely zero reviews off of them because that's this game we play.
That's right. It's all chance. It's all chance.
It is. I'm slowly building an audience. It's hard, but it's hard for all of us out there in this current era.
Right.
But it's still easier than it was 20 years ago when I first thought about doing this. So
yeah, absolutely. We were talking to Michelle from Coffee Fueled Stories, and one of the things I said at the end of our thing was, hey, she's awesome because she's so she's all about the teamwork. So she's like, I want to share, I want to do things, I want to be there. And networking for us is like the lifeblood. So how have you found what are some of the challenges and what are some of the pros and cons of networking for you that you've found?
Well, I have really bad social anxiety, even though I don't appear to. I do. So meeting people in person out in public is kind of scary.
Yeah.
I'm always afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing. At least I have through social media the ability to edit what I write.
Yeah.
I'm very articulate with how I write. So I'm networking for me for the most part has been online in this community. But as I've gotten to know more people and I felt more comfortable, I've been more likely to reach out to people face to face.
Yeah.
Going to events like Nikon, that helped a lot. I've developed quite a few friendships from that, and that people that I never thought in a million years I'd be hanging out with and talking to on a daily basis. People that inspired me, 20, 30 years ago to do what
Mhm.
I'm doing today.
Mhm.
Um, it blows my mind. It really
Yeah.
does. This is
I'm
surreal.
still there too. Like I'm like, I just talked to that person, you know? It's
Yeah.
like,
That's
I
one thing I love
just
about
talked
you,
to
Lisa.
that person.
You're like me. You have consistent enthusiasm when you meet somebody that's
Absolutely.
because it's like, oh my gosh, you've inspired me. And we're marking out on somebody that, you know what? And after we talk to them for 5 minutes, we realize they're no different than you or I. They've got the same
Right.
stuff up in their head, questioning and all that stuff that we all have,
Mm. Yeah.
And then when they say this, everybody gets out of bed and puts on their pants the same way and wipes their butt the same way. They're not kidding. It's true.
Mm.
It's true. And that sometimes makes me feel easier about talking to somebody who's a celebrity.
Right.
I know the first time I met Brian Keene, I was like, oh my God, I was starstruck. And I realized
Yeah.
he's a middle class guy just trying to make a living like me.
Exactly.
And that's
Right.
why I like him more now because of that.
Yeah.
He's somebody he's a good role model. Armand Rosamili, another good role model in this community.
Mhm.
It made me feel very comfortable. And, he does it by just being a nice guy.
Yeah.
If there's any advice I'm going to give to anybody that gets into writing, you just be nice.
Right. Exactly. And that's part of the whole thing where I was again part going back to the conversation was, we're all in this together. There's no competition. There's
Mhm.
millions of books, there's millions of podcasts, there's millions of everything. But when there's strength in numbers, you start to see like, hey, these are my people, it's my tribe, and things become a little bit easier to at
Well, look
least
what
cope
Drew
with.
did with Godless by using
Mm,
micro influencers,
mhm.
because that's what our most popular people in our community, especially this niche indie horror community that we have. Um, they're not celebrities by any means. They're micro celebrities.
Yeah.
All of them, all of us are. We all are.
Mm.
And Drew took advantage of the fact. Stop shaking your head, Pixie. You're a micro celebrity. Regardless of what the mouse says, we'll just say that. I had to get that in. You knew I would. So
Stupid
The
mouse.
mouse has been incredibly helpful.
yeah, the mouse is always stupid. We know that, and we're not talking Disney either. So anyway, so oh yeah. Anyway, yeah. We're in this together. We're micro celebrities, and Drew used them to be able to make a bigger network. So
Yeah.
a bunch of micro celebrities together creates one big celebrity.
Right.
And I appreciated, and I've been trying to get this through the heads of people. This is
Mhm.
the same approach that we need to take with Memento Mori Inc. And
Right.
when we did do that, look what happened. People
Yeah.
noticed who the magazine was, and it shot up to #1 on Amazon's charts.
Right. Yeah.
So my best advice that I'm going to give to anybody out there is, if you're going to network and you're going to market on social media, make sure you do it with a lot of people,
Yeah.
because the
And I
more
think,
eyes that get on something and the more
yeah,
interactions, the more eyes are going to see that product.
right. And I think there's a difference between spending all your time on social media instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing, like writing, right?
Yeah.
Than to be on there with purpose. And that's part of networking. Part of networking is saying, I respect my time, but here's what I can do for you. This is my strength, and this is what I can do to help you. Also, have you heard of this person? Also, have you heard of this person? Let me introduce you to this person, because the more that we do for and with each other, something blooms and
Yep.
something becomes a bouquet rather than this lonely little flower in a garden, right? So, um, yes, you can be a beautiful flower and everybody's going to look at it and they're going to want to smell and touch and whatever. But eventually they're going to be like, it's just a flower and there's five more over there. So when you come together as a bouquet, then you have this, beautiful aroma. You have this beautiful garden of different things. There's my apple. These are my
Yeah, baby.
apples. Make the dark
Baby.
queen go coochie coochie goo. But yeah, so the important part is not spending all your time on social media putting cat memes up. Of course, you want to put a little bit of your personality into things. You put,
Cat memes?
apple.
No.
Yeah.
Filthy memes. Filthy,
But
disgusting memes. It'll get you in trouble.
yes, but just having that know-how of I can spend this much time. Why am I here? What's my purpose? What am I going to do with it? Show your personality and then get back to work. But what I want to know from you is because you haven't been doing this a whole long time. Like I shouldn't say that because we've all been writing for a long time. But in this,
I've
in
been doing
in
the
the,
networking, the internet stuff a little longer than you guys
but
have.
I'm talking about the books, right? So you brought that knowledge for the networking to what you're doing with the books. So
Mhm.
can you tell us a little bit about that process for
I want.
those
I
who
want to.
may?
First off, I learned all this from my buddy
Mhm,
Guy Peasy. Um, he worked with Brian and I over at This Is Infamous. He was the SEO guy for them.
mhm.
The first lesson he taught me: like your own post.
Yeah.
And everybody makes fun of you for doing that. But guess what? It tweaks the algorithm just a little.
Yeah. Yep.
Just a little. That's one more interaction with your post.
Mhm.
Um,
I used to
yeah,
do that in Goodreads. Yeah.
hashtags are very important.
Mm.
Use those hashtags. So one of the reasons that again the magazine was able to hit the #1 spot because you hashtagged the hell out of that thing.
Sure did.
All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Yeah. Those are the two big things. Your biggest traffic days for the internet are Mondays and Fridays.
Mhm.
Mondays because everybody just got back to work and some people don't have computers at home.
Yeah.
Fridays because nobody works on Friday. They just sit in the office and screw off.
Collect the paycheck.
Because that's what Fridays are.
Yep.
And the rest of the week, you've got mid traffic. But the
Yeah.
weekends, not a lot of traffic. And there's a reason for that. It's because people are out doing things. There's a reason that like major network news networks will release news on the weekend that they don't want people to be discussing
Mhm.
because it gets lost in the radar, gets lost in the football games, gets lost in, whatever's going on over the weekend.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't tell them. I tell our interns don't post anything on the weekends.
Yeah.
It's not
Unless it's, hey, this is what we did this weekend.
or it's something important that happened.
Sure.
I was hoping for more to come out of New York Comic Con, but nothing came out of it. So
Wow.
whatever.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the case with New York Comic Con the past few years. Since the pandemic and since Marvel likes to send their stuff to D24 or whatever they're going to call it this year.
Yeah.
They, New York Comic Con isn't as important as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's
a big shift in a lot of things right now. Big shift in it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get back to the writing. Tell me what folk horror is and how
folk
you
horror.
got to writing it.
Folk horror will contain some of these following elements. Another. That's something that shares with cosmic horror.
Mm-hmm.
There's theme, superstition, folk religion, paganism, sacrifice, dark aspects of nature. There's a secret society or a cult. There's an ancient, mysterious being or entity that's somehow, like their god. There's isolation. You don't always have to have a rural setting, but it helps because it is a balance between the wild and the city.
Mm-hmm.
It's most of your protagonists in a folk horror piece are somebody from the city who has gone to the woods and learned that they're still dancing naked around a tree at night.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's supernatural or not is up to the reader or the viewer to decide, depending on the product.
Mm-hmm.
But again, folk horror is very close to cosmic horror with many of its tropes. The big difference is whereas cosmic horror has just an other, in folk horror, both your antagonists and your protagonists are others to one another,
Mm-hmm.
and it's mostly it's either a city versus country dichotomy,
Mm-hmm.
or it's Christian versus pagan, and that creates the conflict that drives the narrative in those stories.
Mm-hmm.
Cottage core, as it's sometimes called, it involves there's a lot of dirt under your toenails,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot of the smell of cow poop,
Yeah.
because
I thought it
that's
was pretty funny when I started seeing cottagecore and it was like these beautiful little like log cabins on TikTok, and I'm like,
not, yeah, yeah, it can be,
mm,
if you're looking at it from that point
Where
of
are
view.
the
But I'm okay. Let's call
cauldrons?
my stuff
Where's
cottage
the
hardcore.
glass?
Okay.
Yeah,
I
where
was
are
like, where are the
the
tentacles
bones?
and
Where's the
things? I don't know.
balloons?
Yeah.
There was a song that went around that got a little viral on TikTok last year. The guy was singing about how they had a nice little house in the country, and they had to feed the thing that lives behind the fence. And if they didn't feed the thing that lives behind the fence, they would lose one of their
Uh-oh.
children or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
was a happy
Folk
song.
music.
Yeah.
Folk music.
Yeah.
Murder ballads. The
Yes,
good stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
American
Sorry
folklore.
about. I had my cat Sif just completely attack my music stand,
Oh,
which my
I was wondering what
phone was
happened to you. I
on.
was like,
Cat decided
she
it
she
did
fell
not
in the
like your
basement.
music tastes.
Yeah. She fell in the basement.
No, the cat heard you, Tommy, and just decided, "Are you my daddy?" And literally attacked my phone. Just
Oh.
leapt at it, and everything just went.
Oh no. Poor baby.
Oops.
Oh, poor kitty.
Yeah, she saw the
So
dog, and that was the end of.
tell us how you got into writing folk horror.
It kind of happened.
Usually that kind of happens.
Well,
How
You
did
fell
it
into it.
kind
Fairy
of
circle.
happen?
you saw Armand Rosamilia made a very poignant poignant statement about me after he read my very first short story collection that I put out a few years ago, Book of Light and Shadow. And it
Mm.
wasn't a curated collection. I literally put everything that I had written into that.
Mhm.
Everything.
Mhm.
So there was 12 stories, 13 stories in that book. And
Mhm.
that was everything that I had written by then. Now I've got, I swear to God, I've got a good 100 short stories out there.
Mhm.
But Armand, thank you. Armand said, when Tom finds his niche, what genre he's going to slot into, I can't wait to see it because it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And so those aren't the exact words, but it's a paraphrase.
Yeah.
And Garrett, when he started mentoring me, one of the first things that he said to me was, "Tom, your horror comes from fantasy."
Mhm.
And that lends to folk horror quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, it does. And I realized that Bella's Boys, even though I thought I had written a cosmic horror book, was actually a folk horror book.
Mm.
Because, again, as I said, the two tropes are so similar sometimes,
Yeah.
depending on, and sometimes they work together really well. So I looked at it, I was like, yeah, this is folk horror because of all the Native American stuff that I put into it.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. So then I realized that the Death List is kind of folk horror-y too.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, because I'm ancient gods and stuff like that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then I wrote Then I wrote The God Provides. And
Yeah.
originally, I just wanted to write a werewolf story, but you can't write a werewolf story without going into the woods.
Yeah.
And I love Irish mythology, and I started incorporating that into it. And then suddenly I was like, oh my God, this is a folk horror book. And then I remember I shared what I had written with Lisa, and you had told me, she goes, I can't wait to have more campfire stories from you.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, that's folk horror.
Mhm.
More of it. And I talked to Garrett, and then he started pushing me in that direction. And Summer Home is pretty much the culmination of all of that.
Mm.
put all the aspects of folklore that I could into that book,
Yeah.
except for the boogeyman. There's not a boogeyman in there unless you caught the cat. But yeah, and the stuff that I'm writing now is more. It's getting more and more mainstreamy. I guess that's a good thing. I'm trying to make my supernatural elements more ambiguous. Instead of going around, oh, there's a freaking werewolf in front of me.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's a guy wearing a wolf mask. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
The sequel / I'm doing The Witch of November. I'm writing that, and that is the sequel / remake of The God Provides, especially the first segment of that, Fireflies and Apple Pies.
Yeah.
It's My Evil Dead 2. Where Evil Dead 2 is kind of like a remake, but also a sequel to Evil Dead.
Yes.
The Witch of November is going to basically be the same story that I tell in Fireflies and Apple Pies, but I'm jazzing it up. And it is a sequel to this because it recognizes the stuff that happens in that book. So I'm using a different instance of upstate New York legend for the catalyst for the story.
Yeah.
Things that happen in it. One that's well known up here. It happened when it snowed on Mother's Day. And it's in May. It snowed here in May, okay? I live in the Great White North of New York.
So you also, we have this in common. You played tabletop role playing, like you played Dungeons and Dragons. You played Magic the Gathering.
World of Darkness, Shadowrun.
Do you feel like that had a huge impact on your writing?
Oh, absolutely. My fantasy world, my magic world that I have, my urban fantasy world that I have is my Dungeons and Dragons game.
Yeah. That's what Unsaintly was for me. And I was like, to bring my tabletop character to a story is like my dream come true. So
Sammy Nightswan, my character that I have, my witch character that shows up in some of my fantasy stories.
Yeah.
She's also the namesake from my printing imprint, my publishing imprint, Night Swan Press. She's also in my books. She's Dr. Pennoir. Oh, don't tell anybody. Spoiler alert. Pennoir.
Yeah.
Black Swan, Night Swan.
Yeah. Donnell, you had a question.
No, I yawned. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey,
I just saw her just do this.
Questions.
And
I'm
like,
just going to yawn, Tom. You're boring me.
No. It's been a long week.
Go ahead, Pixie. What you got?
I unfortunately am a tabletop gamer and wrote for LARP. So all where spiders in LARPs are actually my fault for White Wolf.
I'm buddies with Rich Dansky, who wrote Wraith. So White Wolf was so influential on me.
Yeah.
My
Sorry about the
urban fantasy world is White Wolf.
LARPs.
It really is. In fact, Rich told me that my writing reminds him of early James A. Moore.
Oh, nice.
And that was one hell of a compliment.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm friends with
Because I try to emulate
Ian Dunterman and Jess Heinig.
Pixie, you got to be in like an internet dead zone, aren't you?
I'm telling you, she's like in a little vortex.
You're the girl on AOL dial-up with us.
In a tunnel.
In a tunnel. She's Internet Explorer.
Yeah.
The
She's
basement.
AOL dial up on AOL 1.0. Jeez.
Sorry.
You're good. We're just teasing you.
Still love you.
Yeah, we're just teasing you.
It's the iPhone 6S Plus that I have to use because my laptop.
Oh, poor Pixie.
Oh. And then the cat.
She was
knocked it
doing,
on the head.
yeah, and she was doing so good. I was like, wow, she's really doing good. It was a little
And then
behind
the cat
earlier.
ruined everything.
Yeah. The cat came back.
Revenge of the Cat.
All right. Tommy, is there any kind of music that
3 of them.
influences your writing?
Yes. Right now, my favorite band in the world is a band from London called Green Lung.
Hmm.
I drove 6 hours to see them make their American debut this year. It was worth every hour of the drive.
Awesome.
They just killed it on stage.
Mm.
Their songs are all inspired by the stuff that I love, The Wicker Man and American Werewolf in London and Witches and The Blind Dead and all that stuff, man. It's great, man. They are a doomy Black Sabbath sounding band that plays songs that are topical to what I write.
Yeah.
So I love them, and they're good. They're a good band, and they're
Yeah.
just. I've gotten everybody in the community to check them out. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah. And what's your process when you start to write? Like, say you get, okay, I got an idea, and you're, driving or, just sitting around and you're like, I have this idea, I need to get it out. What is your process to go from that to writing your story to finish?
I make notes.
Mm.
I make a brief an outline that I never follow.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
But I get an idea, and I'm like, okay, this. What if this person did this and this happened to them?
Hmm.
What's the story behind that?
Yeah.
Like the one I just finished writing, Before I Smelled the Rain.
Hmm.
It's probably, I think, one of my best things I've ever written.
Hmm.
And it's basically iRobot meets To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's about a murder trial where a trans couple is killed by a crooked cop. And the only witness is their dog.
Oh,
And the
wow.
dog is able, through technology, to testify at the trial.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. I love the title too. It's very poetic. I love it.
It is because his parents were killed during a rainstorm, and all the
Yeah.
dog wants to do is remember what his life was like before he smelled the rain.
Yeah.
I try to put, I love dogs. I write about them frequently,
Yeah.
and I try to put as much dog mannerisms into something.
Yeah.
And one of those is they got quite a few million more smelling cells in their nose than we do. Millions more.
Hmm.
We've only got, literally, humans have like a dozen smelling cells in their nose. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I try to incorporate all of those things with it. And one of the things that I do with this story, I don't tell you it's a dog.
Hmm.
I use non-binary pronouns with the animal because it's been neutered.
Yeah.
So he's a they, them.
Which you did in Good Boy, right?
No, Good Boy, they're not fixed.
That's right. Okay. There was another story that I'm thinking of. It'll come to my mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're not fixed in that.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's Brothers in Arms you're thinking about, where I don't tell you the person's sex, and it turns out they're just a drone. They're a sexless drone.
Mm.
So I just used it was my first. This was long before using pronouns was in fashion.
Yeah.
I was experimenting with things like that in my writing as I developed my writing voice, and that's one of the early stories that I wrote where I did that. But getting back to Before I Smelled the Rain, it's got a tragic ending, but it's also got a satisfying ending too. Because you know how our society is. They're always going to find the cop fucking innocent.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but
yeah.
So, we've got that kind of situation with this story. So when you read it, you're like, oh my God. And I've got the diversity readers checking it to make sure I'm not writing from a me point of view. That's very important.
Right. Yeah.
I'm in right now I'm in my phase, which I call my diversity phase. And my diversity phase is my goals is when I'm writing is my characters, my leads are not me.
Yeah.
I've had enough representation.
It's hard.
Fiction.
Yeah.
No, it's not hard
to
for
do
me
that.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so at all. It's easy. You just pop into another head.
Yeah.
Good to go.
I just have to make sure the head I pop into isn't one of the ones in here.
True. And again, before I write about a character that's not me, I
Yeah.
make sure I talk to people who are that character.
Okay.
That's
That's a great process. Yeah.
My sister's gay. I've got
Mhm.
my godson's trans. I can
Mhm.
talk to them at any time.
Yeah.
Give me advice. My story, The Breeders, the lead character in there, Gary McCarthy. I based him off my friend Greg Young.
Mhm.
He's a mixed race person of color,
Mhm.
and he experiences different kinds of prejudices than your typical person of color. And I wanted to make sure that
Mhm.
I put those into that story so that he had representation.
Yeah.
I think
Pixie
it's
says it's
important.
empathy explorations. Good
Yes,
term. Yeah.
yes. I think people having representation in fiction is great. I've had
Mhm.
Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, and all those characters, Snake Plissken, for years.
Mhm.
What have my friends that are black gotten? The sidekick?
Mhm.
Come on,
Yeah.
that would be the protagonist.
Right.
No more. And one thing, you say what you will about the Marvel movies, they're great,
Mhm.
but come on, Tony Stark's sidekick's a black man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you should call it what it is.
Right. It
Now
does need a lot more. It does need a lot more diversity, like you were talking about, because people do need to feel like they are a part of something. Because
yeah,
we need isolation in our fiction,
hmm
not outside of it, right?
right.
And it's difficult because as authors, we want to do that. We want to bring them in. We want to help them, but sometimes, like you said, we get stuck in our head. So bringing them into it, and it's really important. And that's why, with our magazine, we're very diverse as well. We try to get more female. We try to get more, different persons and different cultural backgrounds as much as we possibly can. Now, it's not easy. I'm going to tell you that because
No,
we,
it's not.
as you know, we try to get people to write
I've
for
tried
us.
to before. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like, we're going to keep trying as hard as we can. So that's an open invitation, by the way, whoever's listening to this, if are looking to write, and we're going to just use that to skate right into our next segment here. You are, the leader of our bloggers, so our interns. How the leader. So how do you herd the cats? That's the best way I can put it. How do you herd the cats?
well, there's only 3 cats
That's
right now.
still
There's
Still a
only
a
cat.
3
lot.
cats.
That's
Still
still a lot.
There's only 3
That's still
cats
a
right
lot.
now, and that's by design.
Yeah,
I'm bringing these people in slowly. You've got
sure.
the other gentleman that's going to be doing the Advent calendar. What's his name again? John?
Ron.
Ron.
Yes.
And I really haven't, worked with him outside of, the Discord chat.
Hmm.
But Jules and
Yeah.
Nine Toes and Shane, they've
Hmm.
been great so far. Nine Toes actually gave me all his reviews last month, so I'm just
Nice.
putting them up and scheduling them.
Nice.
He discovered one of my books,
Hmm.
fell in love with my prose, and became a super fan of mine.
Yeah.
And the best thing that I can do to repay him is, hey, when we saw this is going on and he already reviewed stories, I was like,
Yeah.
would you like a bigger audience? He said,
Yeah.
yeah. So I said, well, here's an opportunity to,
Mhm.
all I want is 2 reviews from you a week,
Yeah.
and he does it. He's got it.
I think part of the hindrance in what we do right now is there's a fine line between saying, hey, I want to be taken seriously for my work. I want to get paid for my work. And hey, I have not paid my dues yet. Right.
Yeah.
And paying your dues means that you have to build your audience. You have to
Mm.
build your network. And building that means that you can't just hold your hand out and go, well, I'm here. So what are you going to do for me? Because the answer is going to be this. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, well, I've always said that the perks of this job are better than the pay.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
the perks
And
of this job is you learn.
The thing about it is that before we became Memento Mori, we were Houses Stitched, and that was literally a labor of a lot of love.
Yeah.
That's what it was. We didn't get paid for that. We did that because we loved this and we loved what we did, and we were building our audience for everything else. It was our home, right? It was our sanctuary. Um, and so when it came time, I think you remember, I was always like, I wish I could, give you guys more. I wish I could pay you. I wish I could do this. And everybody was like, listen, we're here because we want to be. So finally, when I came and decided I was going to do this again, I was like, I have monies. Everybody was like, that's just bonus. Like, let's just do this, right?
Yeah.
So that to me was a pretty big deal.
I'm just happy I was able to write my column still.
Exactly. Like we were just happy to have a place to put the things that we were doing that we love so much. Like this was our home. I want to hang my pictures back up. I want to hang my hat and my coat back up. So, now that we get to actually, make a little money off of it, it's the perk. It's not the pay for sure. But what would you suggest to somebody who's saying, "Hey, I'm just starting out. I don't know where to begin." What are some do's and some don'ts that you would suggest for them?
Do's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Develop your voice. Keep
Mm-hmm.
writing. I wrote 300,000 words for This Is Infamous for free.
Mm-hmm.
I developed my voice. I learned how to write again after not writing for many years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing you need to do is write. Get your name out there, and you only
Mm-hmm.
do that by writing.
Right.
See what I mean? They all work together. There's in wrestling they call it in wrestling there's the thing where everybody builds the ring.
Yeah.
There's nobody's below setting up being part of the ring crew.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I consider the blog crew to be
Mm-hmm.
with the magazine.
Yeah.
I experienced it with Rue Morgue when I worked there. Well, when I interned there. And it's be the same thing here.
Yeah.
So just write.
Mm-hmm.
Don'ts. Don't. One thing that I've learned recently, and is something that I've been conveying on to my students, is don't alienate your audience or parts of your
Yes.
audience. It's okay to be negative in a review of something,
Mm-hmm.
but show why you're negative. Explain why,
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't think you're just being a shithead
Right.
and hating on something because it's woke.
Yeah. Yeah. Please.
For example, woke means I have empathy.
Thank
Remember
you.
that, people. Good
Thank you.
Lord, how hard
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. So my don'ts is pretty simple.
I
Don't
remember
be a
when
jerk. Don't be a
yes,
jerk is the other thing.
be kind, don't be a jerk. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
One of the things that we encountered before, all of us here, was there was a certain election that people lost their shit, and so there was a lot of division among us. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the beginning of this big ass tumbleweed that we have now regarding some very toxic behavior in the community. Now, there's always been a little bit of that. There's been misogyny, there's been things like that. But right now, it is so out of hand. And it's not just us, it's not just horror, but
Yes,
it is a problem. And I feel like people are afraid to talk about it because they are like, well, I'm going to get canceled or isolated or anything like that. So I feel like, that's another point of
Well, I've
we got
seen
to
it
network.
happen. I've seen it happen.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And let me tell you, this last incident, I'm not going to bring the incident to light. Okay. I'm just going to talk about the effect and the result of it. The last incident sent a good person away for a minute. That person was getting death threats. That person was getting canceled. That person developed severe social anxiety over this. And that person did nothing wrong, but they were accused of doing something wrong. That's the power of network. Why can't we turn that power into something positive?
I think I know who you're talking about there too.
Yeah, you could text me later. But yes,
We'll just say she's a good friend of ours.
no,
No,
no, no.
really?
Yeah. So yeah, it's
Ooh,
another
see,
one. Yeah.
now that
Well,
tells you right there how much of this is going on.
right. Exactly.
We have a
So
responsibility to get dogpile for good, to lift
yes.
good people up, to ignore the shit stirrers and the
Yeah.
smack talkers, and to lift those who are serving as role models.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Now
if someone is
listen.
name dropping you, sometimes it was a reverse effect.
Yeah.
People want to know who the hell you are if you're such a horrible person. Turns out you're
Right.
not a horrible person and you're a good
Yeah.
writer.
Hmm.
And while they say there's no such thing as, bad PR, yes, there is.
There
Take it
is.
seriously
Hmm.
and find your tribe and pull them close and raise others. If you
Yeah.
see someone being bullied, talk to them, ask if they need help.
Absolutely.
Don't be
Absolutely.
afraid to connect to your fellow writers, regardless
Hmm.
if they're a different genre or a different culture or a different gender. We are
Hmm.
all in this together. It is not a
Exactly.
competition. And people
Right.
are getting canceled and hurt and
Hmm.
scared.
Yeah, the fear is real, and that's kind of what I wanted to touch on too, because listen, we're already outcasts. We're already the outcasts. We're, the ones that people were pointing fingers at and making fun of, and playing the tabletop and listening to the music that they didn't understand. We're already the weird. Why are we outcasting the outcast? I don't get it, but we need to stop it, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, we do.
Um,
As
but
long as their ideologies don't make it so that if I have to be concerned if my wife's going to be put in a re-education camp because she's Catholic, okay?
exactly, yeah.
Or if I'm going to be put in a re-education camp because I'm pagan. As
Hmm.
long as your ideologies don't lead
Yeah,
towards that, then yeah, yeah.
right.
Otherwise, that person,
Yeah, absolutely. And I have friends that I have fear for. If you can't be lesbian or trans and I have to worry about my friend's safety, we have an issue. And
yes,
that's why we need to come together. And number one, above all of this, the common denominator is mental health.
yeah.
So we need to really be open and talk about that as well, because especially in this genre, we're all
Lisa,
coping with it.
it is not our responsibility to manage somebody else's crazy.
I
It
can't
is
even manage
their
my own.
responsibility.
I can't
It's
even
your
manage my own.
responsibility
Yeah.
as a
How are you gonna
creator
help me?
to
Yeah.
manage your crazy
That's you're
if you
different.
want to work with other people.
Yeah. Our
You
crazies
have
have to
to.
match.
All the crazies have to match. You have to be on the
Exactly.
same bipolar schedule. Seriously, I'm not saying it to be cruel.
No, you're
You're
not. You and I are on
usually
the
a
same
schedule
bipolar
for a lot
schedule.
of people. It
You're
really is.
talking.
Humans have to
Yeah,
play well together.
Right.
exactly. Exactly.
Right. But don't make your okay. I love this adage. At any time I can help you with your problem. If
Hmm.
at any time your problem becomes my problem, I can't help you anymore because now I have a fucking problem.
Right. Here's what I tell people. I cannot lift a human body up on. I'm not like the end of Titanic when she's like, they're like, why didn't you bring him up onto the raft? That's real. She would not have been able to pull him up with her little bitty broken body of what, 102 pounds, whatever it was, be able to lift Jack up onto there. Now Jack could have got himself up there, but she could have moved over. But what I'm saying is she would not have been able to lift him up onto that. You were in the military, you went through boot camp. How many times did you have to try and lift another human body? It's not that easy,
It's
right?
impossible
It's
because
impossible, right? So you have to be able to make that same analogy in your head. You cannot lift somebody up who's playing dead.
it's true. That's true.
So, you know, and we're off on a rant now, but it's something that I think is very important and needs to be said, that it all goes back to that, the networking, the finding your tribe, finding the right tribe, and then standing up against people who use those numbers to dogpile in a bad way. Like, this is a wolf pack here. Like you come at any one of us, it's going to be a very bad day for you. And that's how it needs to be for all of our good people in the community.
Yeah.
So
I'm getting
that's,
tired of a certain mouth
yeah.
squeaking our names. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Same.
Tired of it.
Yeah. But I think, at least for MMI, I think our reputation stands on itself,
Right, it does.
and so I'm not really
Exactly.
concerned about it. I'm not really concerned with it. And here's the thing. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm the first to tell you I'm imperfect. I'm the first to tell you I'm sorry.
Me
But
too.
that's the difference. That's the difference. And I'm not tooting my own horn with that. I'm
That's true.
genuinely humble to say I don't know everything, and I will always apologize if I've done something incorrect. And that's the difference between these other people that are just like entitled. That's the whole hand-holding thing that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we touched on this because it is an issue, but I want to get back to you. So would you please tell me where everybody can find you and what's up and coming for you and where they can find you coming up in live events?
When is this airing?
To this week.
All right. As this airs, I've already had a show, Creepy Cues. As you recall, it got moved. The venue got moved. That's fine. I'll still be there. I was still there on Saturday, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to be at the Cohoes Public Library on November 16th for an author event there. And Black Friday weekend, I'm going to be at Small Business Saturday for Lesnicki's greenhouses. They fill all their greenhouses up with small businesses from across the region, and it's lucrative for me. That's all I'm going to say.
Awesome.
I get them one fan at a time. I'm re-releasing Good Boy on November 10th. I got the proof in the mail
Started
today.
it all.
Yeah, with a little. Somebody in this podcast wrote the introduction to this. Thank you.
No, thank you.
And there she tells the story of how we met and whatnot. It's a pretty cool story. So and right now I'm finishing Whirlwind. Got a few. I'm working on some stories for Burt Edens right now, and I'm getting those done in a workshop with Garrett Cook as we speak. I just finished the one Before I Smelled the Rain, and I wrote one, and it's Blue Oyster Cult inspired, called Mirror, Mirror, Mirror. And the experiment with that was to bounce tenses in the story. Each head has a different tense. Because I did that to show, because the song that's inspired by astronomy is about the infinite time, and time isn't consistent. It happens all at once instead of being linear. So what I tried to do with that, to represent that in the stories that take place in our past are told in past tense. Stories that are happening now are in present tense. And stories in the future are in first person present tense.
That's awesome. I love it.
From the person's point of view as they're unfolding.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and then I blend them all together at a nexus, at a junction. A line from the song, the nexus of the crisis.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I like playing with words. It's fun. And with ideas too. I'm always trying to think of a new way to tell a story.
Yeah.
I did it with the first girl, and it being a found footage film, where it's just a transcript of a podcast.
Yeah.
Of somebody watching a television show. So it's like the audio commentary of a movie getting the treatment. So yeah, that's what's going on. ThomasRClark.com is where you can find me, and Tommy Clark on Facebook and Instagram and Threads. I'm not on I'm on Blue Sky too, Thomas R. Clark, I think, or Token Tom. I'm not sure.
Nobody uses it.
I am not on X. I'm not on X. I was on X, but I let 10
That's a
years
cesspool.
of building that up turn into an outhouse cesspool. It's an outhouse that needs wood chips and doesn't have any.
Yeah.
It's a wood chipper.
Dumpster fire.
It needs something.
It is.
But
Donna, did you have a question?
It was kind of observation more than a question. So, you're talking about the whole cancel culture and trying to, circle the wagons around the good ones and, in a way, drop kick the asshats into the next universe. I've noticed because people are like, "Oh, our world has become so violent lately," and uh, so much misinformation. I'm like, it's always been there. Here's
Mhm.
the thing: it's the proliferation of the internet and people's access to it that now allows them to have this voice.
Mhm.
So
That's what allows us to write.
it does. So it's that double-edged sword,
Yeah.
and this person, the mouse, I wasn't sure who it was, and now I know, and now I remember, and I lost track of that because I purposely blocked it.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mentally cannot get wrapped up in there. Besides, I figure Tommy's got a good eye on
We're
things,
watching
so
him. We're watching. We got this checked out.
so you keep
Yeah.
me filled in, and I don't have to lose my shit
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I don't
Yeah.
have the mental
One thing
bandwidth.
I've
And
done is I'm avoiding drama from now on.
Mhm.
yeah,
A little while there, I
it's
was like, eh. Now I'm like, I want nothing to do
I
Yeah.
with it.
that's why I can't get caught up in
Bless you.
that because
Bless
bless
you.
you,
Thank you.
it
You should
interferes
not.
with any kind of progress I'm trying to make and my own
Exactly.
writing and my own mental health and
Yeah.
my own personal growth and getting past some
Mm.
serious shit that just needs to go away.
I figured the best way I can fight the good fight is through my fiction.
Yeah. Lead by
And if
example.
I'm
Yep.
it is
That's what I'm
because
gonna be. That's what
if
I'm
I'm
doing.
getting caught up in all that other crap, I got nothing. There's
Yeah.
only so much room in there, and I'm losing
Living
sight
well is the
of who I
best
want to be
revenge.
Mm.
because of what's I'm getting caught up in. So it's
Right. And what have I always told you guys whenever that shit is going on and we get riled up? I say, if you have enough time to be doing that shit, then you have enough time to be doing something productive. So put
That's
the
right.
why I
energy.
start writing.
Yeah, put the energy into your passion. And if you're going to write a rant about, if you're like, oh, I need to write a rant about that, put that into your book, put that into a scene, put that into a poem, put that into something that is going to bring you back something that is positive because that shit doesn't matter. It's temporary. It's going
I'm
to
But
not
go
it
talking
away.
about
also
politics on social media because I'm putting it in my fiction.
That's right.
it,
That's right.
it also brings to mind kind of a play on Jeff Goldblum's character, Dr. Malcolm from Jurassic Park, where he says
Mm,
about scientists spent so much time thinking we can do this, they didn't stop to think, should we?
should we?
It's the
Should we?
same thing.
Mm,
Just because I can say it and doesn't mean I should say it. Just because I
right.
can do something, say something, behave a certain way doesn't mean you should.
Right.
That's right.
And I see
If
enough.
the only way you can rise,
What?
if the only way a person can rise is to put another person down,
Mm,
it's a problem.
It
yeah.
is. And
That's symptomatic of abuse that they had as a child or some other situation in their life.
Yeah.
They were taught that by somebody.
Right.
You have to
yeah,
keep that in mind. And that doesn't exonerate somebody from being a shithead, but understanding why they did it helps a lot. It really does. Because
Hmm.
it helps you say you're able, okay, this person's one of them. Click.
Yeah.
yeah. And
Exactly.
so, I mean,
And this all harkens back to don't make your crazy my problem.
Yeah.
But
Please.
we also need people who are experienced, like you guys, letting us newbies know who's who, other than the beware list on the horror zine. We need
Mm,
mentors telling
mhm.
us, this person just messaged you out of the blue, be really careful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because some
That.
of us have no idea
Yeah.
who a bad actor is, and they're bombing on us. And next thing
That's.
we know, crazy shit is happening. We're like, I have no
Yeah.
idea who these people there are. I'm being named with, and what the fuck?
Right.
Get me
And
out of here. I'll
The
that's a
first
message
thing
you
I
to
slippery
say
slope too,
hi.
though. That's a slippery slope too, though, because when you say something, there are some people that I have tried to warn gently and say, hey, like just be a little careful, or just tread lightly. And it gets back to that person that I was talking shit. Now, here's the thing I'm going to tell you now. This is where I come from here. If I got something to say to you, I will say it to your face. I have no problems with that. So if you come to me and you heard that I said something, guarantee if you come to me, I'll say, yep, I said it. I said it.
You know what I like to do? I like
Mm.
to find. I test jokes out on somebody before I do them with the person.
Yeah.
Like Ryan Harding, I got to sit next to him at TBR Con this year, and I realized that during my sitting there, Ryan's a gigantic man.
Yeah.
He is almost 7 feet tall, and I realized that he should. My joke was that he should be hired by every independent filmmaker just to be an extra on set.
Mhm.
Stand there lurking and leering. He could be the common thread. Every indie horror film that's out there is
Yeah.
starting leering at you. And I tested that joke out on about 6 people before I went to Ryan and said it to him myself, just to make sure it was fucking funny.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
not insulting. You know what I mean?
But I already thought Danny Trejo did that, but he's just the other opposite way. He's
It's like
the
the Where's
opposite.
Waldo of movies.
Yeah. All right, Tommy, thank you so much for being
You're
with us. I know
welcome.
you're running out of power here. We love you, and go make sure that you get a Tommy book.
Yes, thank you. Good Boy, November 10th. Be up there. If you come see me at a public appearance, I've got exclusive chat books that you can get from me.
Before you leave, I still have some. I forgot to give you some. I will send them to you.
Okay. Yes.
I was hoarding them. No, I really did. They were so small. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
they're the small ones. All right. Have a good one, guys.
Bye,
bye.
Tommy. Love you.
Bye.
All right. So, one of the things that I would like to do before we go is to talk about our next episode. So, our next episode is going to be in November. We have the pleasure of hosting Dacre Stoker and Chris McCauley. And then, Pixie, will you please tell us about our other esteemed guests who will be part of our night crew?
Part of our night crew will be artist Christoph Corvinus of the Black Tulip Studio, who is a horror and folk horror, actually, mythology horror, fantasy horror, and vampire aficionado who's been involved in the New Orleans vampire scene and is currently doing a project of their own night gallery based on the classic 1970s series and exploring masks and fears and literary tropes.
Love it.
And Christoph Corvinus is able to be found on social media and will be joining us for the next podcast.
That's amazing. So thank you so much for digging that body up for us. We really appreciate it.
Oh,
Make
it was
sure
a
that
joy.
make sure that Dacre and Chris McCauley get the 5-star bag when
They'll
they
think
join
they're
us
in a
as well.
hotel suite.
Absolutely. Until then, we will see you next time. And next time, we were supposed to do a 2-sentence review on this one, but unfortunately, Jay did not make it out of her bag for this one. So we want to make sure that we have this review courtesy of Pixie, who chose the book for us. Pixie, you want to tell us the book and the author?
The book is Jeff Noon, A Man of Shadows, the first in the Nyquist series.
Awesome. So the reason why I announce it now is because, again, we were supposed to do the review. We're going to do 2-sentence reviews for this. That's it. What I'd like to do is have y'all go read the book and see if you agree with us next time. So I hope you'll join us. We'll see you in November. Have a good night.
Good night.
Don't lose it. Make sure you save it.